Chapter 301, Fusing with the Tree of Life. As the power of creation surged through Su Zimo's body, he slowly took out the mother leaf. A dense aura of life spread out from the leaf. It was said that every drop of liquid emitted by the Tree of Life's main body had the power to rival celestial great elixirs. As mysterious energy began to emanate from the mother leaf, Su Zimo followed the method taught to him by Yao Xingnan, carefully using the leaf bit by bit. The thick life aura enveloped the entire courtyard. All around the halfway point of South Goose Mountain, various plants began growing frantically. Su Zimo's soul and body seemed to separate. His consciousness entered a pitch-black void, as if he were traveling through endless space. He could see nothing around him. In his hand, he held a glass bottle. Standing in the darkness, he opened the bottle cap and slowly poured out a single drop of blood. This blood was given to him by Yao Xingnan. It was the life essence of the celestial race. As the blood drop fell, the darkness beneath his feet began to ripple. Waves of ripples grew larger and larger. At first, everything around Su Zimo was silent. He couldn't hear a thing. Suddenly, the sound of dripping water echoed all around him. A flash of green light passed before Su Zimo's eyes. When he opened them again, he was surrounded by a sea of green. He had entered a forest. Towering ancient trees grew densely, blocking out the sky. The tree trunks stretched endlessly, their ends nowhere in sight. Their canopies were so thick and vast they obscured the entire sky. Looking up, he couldn't see the sun, only slivers of light filtering through the leaves. The forest was extremely tranquil. No one knew how many years these ancient trees had lived, but the aura of life was incredibly dense. Su Zimo looked around and walked straight ahead along a forest path. This path had clearly been purposefully carved out. Both sides were lined with green vines. The forest air was fresh and invigorating. As he walked further, turning a corner on the path, the view ahead suddenly opened up, and what he saw left him utterly shocked. It was a tree. A truly ancient, otherworldly tree, massive and boundless. Its trunk soared into the sky, as if trying to hold up the heavens. Its crown stretched like an umbrella, covering half the sky. The height of this tree was impossible to estimate. Its branches were innumerable, spreading out from all directions. Each branch was dozens of meters thick, further splitting into countless other limbs. Entangled and vibrant, a forest of their own. The tree's trunk was covered in strange, fruit-like objects. These resembled six-pointed stars and were about the size of a thumb. By rough estimate, there were millions of these star-shaped fruits hanging from the tree. Its leaves resembled maple leaves, purely green, exuding powerful life energy. The tree's body was a deep brown color. Some of its countless branches rooted themselves into the ground. Others curled in the air. The trunk alone was over 100 meters thick. It was nearly unimaginable how long and deep the roots and branches were. This ancient tree stood quietly in the heart of the forest. It felt like it existed in another realm, a space isolated from both time and space. Only upon reaching its base did Su Zimo truly feel its overwhelming presence. He felt as small as a speck of dust. Then, from the tree's deep brown trunk, two eyes slowly appeared, radiating a supreme and commanding presence. "Human, you are not of the celestial race. Why have you come here?" "I've heard of the Tree of Life's renown and came to witness it for myself," Su Zimo replied with a smile. "Then you shall remain here forever." As the ancient voice finished speaking, a thunderous boom echoed out. The thick branches around him suddenly surged up, like a horde of demons dancing wildly in midair. They all struck toward Su Zimo. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes, swiftly drawing Shadow Tyrant. Flames surged along the blade. Thunder crackled as he slashed. As his strike landed, all the branches of the Tree of Life were severed. Flames rushed up along the branches. However, these branches were overflowing with vitality. The severed limbs regenerated instantly. More and more branches appeared. Su Zimo took a deep breath. His peak Imperial Meridian Realm aura exploded forth. All 6 of his meridian gates opened, and creation power filled the surrounding heavens and earth. He stepped into the air. Behind him, War God's sixth transformation, the Azure Dragon, activated. A massive azure dragon shadow coiled behind him. A spiritual storm erupted, violent and relentless, shaking the surrounding space until it shattered. 19 forms of Tao seeking. 12th form, Void Oblivion. As Su Zimo's shadow tyrant descended, a storm of destruction brewed within the strike. Endless creation power eroded the void. Thunderous explosions rumbled across the entire area. All surrounding space was obliterated by Su Zimo's blow. This Void Oblivion technique could destroy all nearby particle worlds in an instant. Its destructive power was absolute. As the blade energy spread, all the Tree of Life's branches were severed. "Human, how dare you?" An angry roar echoed from the center of the Tree of Life. Because of Su Zimo's strike, countless black holes appeared in the sky. With the branches all cut off, Su Zimo's eyes gleamed sharply. He took the chance while the tree hadn't yet recovered, rising into the air and slashing straight down into the center of the trunk. Spirit force storms surged forth. Boo! His blade pierced the tree's trunk, and Su Zimo pulled it apart with all his strength. The muscles on his arms bulged as he dragged downward. The colossal tree was split in two, torn from the center. As the vast, ancient tree finally collapsed, another boom resounded across the forest. Dust filled the air. At the core of the fallen trunk, a new tree was growing. This was the true Tree of Life. Its form was slightly translucent, almost unreal. It resembled a smaller version of the outer tree, its trunk shimmering with brilliant green light. It looked like fireflies, or perhaps like something out of a fairy tale. "Human, you seek death." A furious voice echoed from the glowing tree. "What? No more hiding," Su Zimo said with a grin. The Tree of Life's will was enraged. Its real trunk began to tremble. Another round of thunderous booms erupted. An overwhelming power spread from the tree. Clearly, it was about to fight seriously. Su Zimo didn't dare to be careless. Even at the peak of the Imperial Meridian realm, he knew, in front of the true Tree of Life, he was still nothing. Chapter 302, Visiting Sacred Lord Shao. Su Zimo took a deep breath. At this moment, his true fate world opened. A deep blue planet slowly appeared. Within his true fate world, the primordial chaos bead floated out under Su Zimo's guidance. The moment the primordial chaos bead emerged, the Tree of Life began to tremble violently. "This is..." The Tree of Life's consciousness roared in fury, and even its own aura became unstable. "Primordial chaos, why are you here?" Su Zimo ignored the Tree of Life's questioning. As his true fate world grew stronger, the power of the primordial chaos bead also intensified. Waves of creation energy surrounded the Tree of Life. Feeling this force, the Tree of Life trembled even more violently. It lashed out at the primordial chaos bead madly, but to no avail. "Primordial chaos, spare me." As the Tree of Life pleaded, a blinding light radiated from the primordial chaos bead. That light began pulling at the Tree of Life's core, slowly uprooting it. The tree's consciousness screamed, resisting with all its might. The primordial chaos bead started spinning, emitting a resonant hum. Another wave of that blinding light fell, carrying a power capable of utter destruction. Under its force, the Tree of Life's consciousness began to wail in agony. It wasn't long before the voice went silent, its will completely obliterated. With its consciousness gone, the Tree of Life's resistance weakened drastically. As its roots were gradually pulled up, the entire earth shook violently. Finally, with a thunderous boom, the Tree of Life was fully uprooted. Though its true form wasn't as massive as the previous outer shell, it was still majestic and awe-inspiring. The primordial chaos bead drew the Tree of Life directly into Su Zimo's true fate world. Once inside, the Tree of Life began taking root under the guidance of the primordial chaos bead. Previously, Su Zimo's true fate world was barren and lifeless. No vegetation could be found. But as the Tree of Life took root, the six-pointed star-shaped fruits on it scattered across the land. With the spring breeze blowing and warm spring rain falling like oil, the entire True Fate world began preparing for the arrival of plant life. The little dragon cub within the world watched the strange spectacle, its chubby head tilting in confusion. As these seeds spread across the land, they took root instantly, nourished by the rain, warmed by sunlight, and fed by spiritual energy. The world's life force began catalyzing their growth. With such support, these first plants grew at a speed visible to the naked eye. Algae, fungi, lichens, mosses, ferns, seed plants. All kinds of flora began to bloom and spread across the land. Overnight, plant life blanketed every corner of his god world. Even aquatic plants began flourishing one after another. As the botanical system stabilized, the entire True Fate world grew more complete and solid. Once plant growth reached a natural rhythm, the world's own heavenly Tao stopped interfering. Outside, Su Zimo felt a powerful surge of energy returning to his own body. His physical strength and cultivation were being refined and tempered by that energy. This tempering lasted a full month. Over the course of that month, Su Zimo's strength multiplied several times over. Even more terrifying, his cultivation didn't break through. He remained in the Imperial Meridian realm. Among those of the same level, Su Zimo felt that so-called invincibility was no exaggeration. Such was the power of the True Fate world. As its laws and order matured, Su Zimo's strength source came directly from it. Naturally, the strength he could wield grew stronger too. Compared to a month ago, Su Zimo felt completely reborn. With a wave of his hand, the space around him shattered in layers. He could feel the immense growth of his power clearly. Exhaling deeply, Su Zimo walked out of his secluded room. Lin Ruhu was dutifully standing guard at the door. "No one came looking for me during this time, right?" Su Zimo asked. "No." Lin Ruhu shook his head. "Big bro Zimo, did you break through?" "Sort of." Su Zimo nodded with a smile. "Big bro Zimo, do you know about the woman Sacred Lord brought back?" Lin Ruhu suddenly asked. "What about her?" "I've heard of it," Su Zimo replied. "Her name is Meng Chenxue," said Lin Ruhu. "After joining the sacred ground, she's challenged all the personal disciples of the major elders. She hasn't lost once. And she's even declared that she wants to challenge you for the position of Holy Son. Just a brat. Let her do as she wants." Su Zimo shook his head. "Still, she's way too arrogant. Someone's got to take her down a peg," Lin Ruhu said, clearly annoyed. "You focus on your own cultivation. I've been back for a while and haven't even visited the Sacred Lord yet," Su Zimo replied with a smile. The Sacred Lord of the true martial sacred ground resided atop Heaven Genesis Mountain, a floating island suspended in the sky. The island was vast and expansive, like a behemoth looming across half the heavens. Shrouded in immortal mist, it carried a mysterious and ethereal aura. Su Zimo ascended into the sky, clad in a purple robe, his long hair drifting in the gentle autumn breeze. He took a step into the air, aura completely restrained. Standing at the edge of the island, he called out loudly, "Holy Son Su Zimo, here to visit Sacred Lord Shao." After a brief silence, a gentle voice echoed from within the mist. "Come in." The immortal mist parted, revealing a narrow path, and Su Zimo followed it in. Ancient trees loomed tall, flowers blossomed in vibrant color. Small bridges spanned flowing streams. Across one such bridge stood an unassuming home. Beneath the bridge, the water ran clear, colorful fish swimming freely. By the shore, an old man wearing a bamboo hat and a gray robe sat calmly, fishing in silence. Next to him stood a girl. She had long hair that cascaded down from the top of her head. An oval face, subtle makeup. Her sharp eyes radiated energy. She wore slightly loose pants and a black robe, giving off a neat and clean aura. As Su Zimo crossed the bridge toward them, he saw that the girl's eyes were already filled with fighting spirit. "He's here," the old man said with a smile, still calmly holding the fishing rod. "Greetings, Sacred Lord." Su Zimo bowed slightly in respect. Qing Shan has raised a fine son, Sacred Lord Xiao said warmly. You flatter me, Su Zimo replied with a light chuckle. The girl beside them, listening to the exchange, seemed unable to hold back any longer. Looking directly at Su Zimo, she said, So you're the current holy son? They say you're strong. Let's see if you can keep up with me for a few rounds. Chapter 303. I'm afraid I might smash you to death. Forget it, Su Zimo said with a slight shake of his head in response to Meng Qinshua's provocation. You're scared. Meng Qinshu snorted, muttering coldly, Just an overrated name. I am a little scared, Su Zimo replied with a light laugh. Scared I might smash you to death. Sacred Lord Xiao, standing nearby, was momentarily stunned. Then he chuckled and said, It's just a friendly sparring match. No need to be so serious. All talk. That's all you are. Meng Qinshu snapped back coldly. As her words fell, a powerful aura at the peak of the Paragon Meridian realm burst out from her. All 5 of her meridian gates opened simultaneously, spiritual energy storms swirling around her. The long sword at her waist hummed and vibrated. His current cultivation was at the peak of the Imperial Meridian realm. In truth, he had never been in a rush to advance his realm. If he had continued down the same path as in his previous life, cultivating the Grand Sovereign Freedom Codex and relying on the primordial Chaos Bead's energy, he would have reached the God Meridian realm by now. But this time he walked a path of creation, a path no one had ever taken before. No one knew where this road would lead. Every step was a new frontier, and Su Zimo advanced with caution, aiming to make no mistakes. Though his current level was still just the peak of Imperial Meridian realm, he stood at the pinnacle of his generation. Even in the Middle Continent, the most prosperous of the 5 continents, the top young talents were only just entering the Imperial Meridian realm. And there were still 9 levels of the Imperial Meridian realm ahead of them. What's more, the difficulty of opening meridian gates increased drastically in later stages. Progress slowed dramatically. Su Zimo had long left his peers behind. As for Meng Qinshu, her strength at such a young age was indeed impressive. She had earned the right to be proud. If you're too afraid, just give up your position as Holy Son, Meng Qinshu continued shouting from behind him. Su Zimo tilted his head and saw Sacred Lord Xiao still calmly fishing nearby, clearly uninterested in meddling. If you don't fight me today, Meng Qinshu said flatly, I'll spread word across the entire true martial sacred ground that you backed down from a challenge. That's enough, Qinshu, Sacred Lord Xiao scolded, giving her a glare before turning to Su Zimo. Nephew Zimo, she's just a young girl who doesn't understand. Don't take it to heart. Why not entertain her for a few rounds? It's not that I don't want to. She's just too weak. I'm afraid she won't survive even one move. Su Zimo shook his head. Anyone can talk big, Meng Qinshu sneered. She unsheathed the sword from her waist. Brilliant sword light illuminated the sky as she slashed toward Su Zimo. Su Zimo turned around, without channeling any spirit force. He simply raised his right hand and pressed down toward her. Boom! An explosion erupted as the space around his palm shattered into pieces. The endless sword light was instantly swallowed. Meng Qinshu's sword shattered under the force of his palm, breaking into fragments and finally disintegrating into dust that drifted into the sky. Seeing such overwhelming force, Meng Qinshu stood frozen. She was completely pinned in place, unable to move. Su Zimo's right palm, carrying immense might, descended from the heavens. The wind lifted the long strands of hair at her temples. Just a few inches before the palm struck her, Su Zimo slightly restrained his power. Otherwise, he truly might have killed her. Even so, the palm strike sent Meng Qinshu flying backward. As her body flew through the air, a line of blood trailed behind her. Bang! She crashed hard into a slab of stone in front of the cottage. The stone split into several pieces, and Meng Qinshu struggled to her feet. Unable to suppress it, she coughed up a mouthful of blood. Her face was pale, and she looked thoroughly disheveled. On Sacred Lord Zhao's account, Consider this a lesson. Su Zimo spoke, his aura imposing. He looked at Meng Qinxue and said coldly, "If there's a next time, you'll end up like your sword." His tone was severe, and the killing intent in his eyes was sharp. Meng Qinxue flinched, unable to meet his gaze. "Sacred Lord Shao, if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave." Su Zimo's face returned to a smile as he turned and walked off Heaven Genesis Mountain. Watching his departing figure, Sacred Lord Shao narrowed his eyes. After a long pause, he sighed and muttered, "I can't see through him at all." Master. Meng Qinxue, still weak, walked over to him. "Your arrogance will cost you one day," Sacred Lord Shao said with a light smile. "Now do you understand that there's always someone stronger?" "I didn't expect him to be that strong," Meng Qinxue said after a deep breath. "He must be in the Imperial Meridian realm, but even then, that kind of strength. I couldn't even fight back. To be honest, I can't see through him either. He's like a fog," Sacred Lord Shao said, shaking his head. He then handed her a pill. "Heal up. Don't leave any lasting damage." After leaving Heaven Genesis Mountain, Su Zimo returned to his residence on South Goose Mountain. He knew Sacred Lord Shao had sent Meng Qinxue to test him, but instead she got crushed. Su Zimo now felt his strength had grown to the point where he no longer needed to rely on the true martial sacred ground. He had no grudge against Sacred Lord Shao. Soon after, his maid Chun Shao came to report, "Lady Ji Baiyu is here to see you." Ji Baiyu, a descendant of Grand Emperor Fei Yu. Ever since Su Zimo brought her to the sacred ground, they'd rarely seen each other. They hadn't interacted much. Su Zimo wasn't around often. "Let her in," he replied. After so long apart, Ji Baiyu seemed even more beautiful. She had just entered the Paragon Meridian realm, wearing a light purple dress with grace and poise. But her face was a little pale. "Miss Ji, long time no see," Su Zimo said with a smile. "I thought you'd forgotten about me?" Ji Baiyu replied softly after a moment of silence. "Why? Things not going well for you in the sacred ground?" Su Zimo asked, puzzled. "You probably know about me," Ji Baiyu said.
Su Zimo not dead.
As a descendant of Grand Emperor Fei Yu, her clan's fall had led to their extermination. She was the sole survivor, fleeing with the Grand Emperor's legacy to the Eastern continent. "I joined the true martial sacred ground to escape," Ji Baiyu explained. "But now my enemies have found me. They're trying to negotiate with the sacred ground to have me expelled." "Your enemies are that powerful?" Su Zimo asked in surprise. "Powerful enough to make the sacred ground back down?" No, Ji Baiyu quickly said. "They want to trade something with the sacred ground in exchange for me." Chapter 304 Demon Slayer. Right now, Sacred Lord Shao hasn't agreed to their demands, but he hasn't outright rejected them either, Ji Baiyu said. "I'm not afraid of dying, but the blood feud of my clan hasn't been avenged yet. I don't want to die just like this. If Sacred Lord Shao agrees to hand me over to them, there's no way I'll survive. Can you help me?" "How do you know I'll help you?" Su Zimo asked with a slight laugh. "I don't." Ji Baiyu shook her head. "But I have no other choice. I don't know anyone else here. I can only come to you." "Don't worry," Su Zimo said with a smile and a shake of his head. "You carry the legacy of a grand emperor. The sacred ground understands what's important." "But what if they don't?" Ji Baiyu asked anxiously. "Here's what we'll do. Stay at my place on South Goose Mountain for now," Su Zimo said. "No matter what, I was the one who brought you to the true martial sacred ground. I'd like to see who dares touch you." "Thank you," Ji Baiyu said gratefully, her expression lightening. "No need to thank me. Since I brought you here, it's my responsibility to keep you safe. But as for the rest, you'll need to handle that yourself." "I understand," Ji Baiyu nodded. "Who are your enemies?" Su Zimo asked curiously. "The 7 ancients of the North Sea," Ji Baiyu said, taking a deep breath. Seeing Su Zimo's puzzled look, she explained, "They're infamous across the entire northern continent, despised and feared. They'll do absolutely anything to gain power. But they're also 7 God Meridian Realm cultivators, so most factions avoid provoking them. They must be after Grand Emperor Fei Yu's inheritance, Su Zimo said. They want to enter the immortal path, Ji Baiyu nodded. They believe Ancestor Fei Yu's legacy holds clues about immortality. Interesting, Su Zimo chuckled. After sending Ji Baiyu off, Su Zimo spent the next few days resting at South Goose Mountain. He'd been busy for quite some time and hadn't enjoyed such peace in ages. He also remembered the promise he made to the God Emperor to help track down the myriad Tao Red Lotus and reforge his heaven's will. After a few days of rest, Su Zimo visited the scripture pavilion of the True Martial Sacred Ground. This pavilion contained all the Sacred Ground's books since its founding, except cultivation techniques and martial skills. Most were miscellaneous writings and travel records. The scripture pavilion had 3 levels. Only the Sacred Lord and a few top elders had access to the 3rd level. It held confidential documents, including those left behind by past emperors and unknown secrets. As the Holy Son, Su Zimo had the qualifications to enter, but he still had to get permission from Sacred Lord Shao. With that permission granted, Su Zimo went straight to the 3rd level. Unlike the ocean of books on the lower floors, the 3rd level had only a single bookshelf, and on that shelf only a few dozen books. Su Zimo was looking for any record related to Grand Empress Hongtian. He casually flipped through books like Secrets of the Primordial Heartlands, Origins of the 10 Forbidden Grounds, and Chronicles of the Demon Slayers. When he saw the Demon Slayers, his brows furrowed slightly. He remembered Paimon's identity and his mysterious mission, which was somehow tied to this clan. With complicated emotions, Su Zimo slowly opened the book. What is a demon? It's not merely someone who practices demonic arts or has no humanity. A true demon might be a race, a belief, or an ideology. A demon is not necessarily evil. Reading these opening lines, Su Zimo nodded in agreement. Having awakened the hell-suppressing demon physique, he himself probably seemed more like a demon. Since the Imperial era, a certain type of being calling themselves heaven demons would appear every few eras. They were powerful and intelligent. They did not seek war with the human race of the continent. Some said the heaven demons had their own ideals, missions they pursued. But no one truly understood what those missions were. Because since the first generation of heaven demons appeared, the primordial heartlands saw the emergence of a family destined to oppose them, the demon-slaying clan. This clan rose like bamboo after rain, suddenly and inexplicably. No one knew where they came from or who founded them. The sole purpose of their existence seemed to be the extermination of all heaven demons. The war between the demon-slaying clan and the heaven demons had lasted nearly 1,000,000 years. In that time, they had slain 13 heaven demons without a single defeat. This book chronicled the demons that had appeared throughout history, as well as the demon slayers who had defeated them. When Su Zimo reached the final page and saw the bold line at the bottom, his pupils shrank, and his expression was full of disbelief. The demon-slaying clan, the Lan clan. The wind of autumn blew with desolation and decay. Withered leaves fell from the trees, only to be crushed underfoot. No one paid them any mind, even though those leaves had once basked in spring's warmth, summer's blazing sun, and autumn's melancholy beauty. But before winter came, they faded into nothing. Tiansheng Domain, Middle Continent. Within a city belonging to the Lan clan, Lan Kuer gently extended her hand to catch a falling autumn leaf. In a courtyard filled with wind-blown leaves, several of the most promising Lan clan youths stood gathered. At the front stood Lan Juntian, the head of the Lan clan, speaking to the gathered teens. The demon-slaying clan. This is the mission and glory of the Lan clan. The young men and women below him listened with excitement. Until today, even they hadn't known that their Lan clan was the legendary demon-slaying clan. Few know that our clan's founder was none other than the sage. Lan Juntian continued passionately. In the early age of myths, he rode a green ox and traveled the world, slaying monsters across the land. He carved out hope for a fragile humanity. That man, honored as the sage, was our ancestor. The sage. The Lan youths murmured, whispering that legendary title filled with meaning. Since the founding of the Lan clan, countless years have passed. We've slain 13 heaven demons, always following the sage's teachings. And now, at the site of the ancient city of Hunyuan, we've sensed a new demonic aura. This era, a new demon is about to descend.
Chapter 305 Lan KER.
Our clan must choose a new demon slayer. This honor and responsibility will fall upon them. You are the most outstanding disciples of the Lan clan in this generation. I've gathered you here today to decide who will become the demon slayer. Patriarch, how will the warrior be chosen? A young man eagerly asked. Bring forth the demon-suppressing drum and the demon-slaying sword, Lan Juntian shouted. A pitch-black drum and a sharp, black crystal longsword were carried in. All the youths present looked on in awe and curiosity. Beat the war drum.
Lan Juntian shouted.
He picked up the drumstick and began striking rapidly. Boom! 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 The explosive sound echoed all around. Dark demonic energy swirled atop the black drumhead. The drumstick in Lan Juntian's hand emitted a golden radiance, and with each strike, the golden light grew brighter, and the demonic mist was gradually suppressed and dissipated. Every beat of the drum seemed to shake the hearts of everyone present. The reverberations lingered in the courtyard, refusing to fade. Many of the youths saw flashes of blood-soaked visions, fragmented images of battles between generations of demon slayers and the heaven demons. The sound of the demon-suppressing drum felt like it tore through the heavens, shaking the sky. It carried ancient memories, damp earth and the stench of blood that weighed heavily on everyone's chest. Black mist blanketed the courtyard, mixing with the melancholy autumn wind, rising toward the heavens with a tragic force. Every victory of the demon slayers had come at a cost of sacrifice and brutality. Lan Juntian's face was flushed, his chest heaving. When the drumming finally ended, he slowly set down the drumstick. The black mist in the courtyard began to dissipate. Most of the young disciples had collapsed to the ground. Only 3 remained standing. You 3, step forward, Lan Juntian said, looking at the demon-slaying sword on the stone platform. Among the 3 was Lan Kuer. Lift this demon-slaying sword. If you gain the approval of the sword spirit, you will be the demon slayer of this generation. Upon hearing this, the first youth stepped up immediately. He took a deep breath, spirit force of the Paragon Meridian realm surging around him. He gripped the hilt with both hands and shouted, veins bulging on his forehead, muscles trembling as he tried with all his might to lift the sword. But no matter how hard he tried, the sword did not move at all. After a long struggle, he collapsed to the ground in frustration. That's enough. Everyone only gets one chance. If you can't, then you can't, Lan Juntian said flatly, noting the youth's dissatisfied expression. The second youth stepped up next, but the result was the same as the first. You try now, Lan Juntian said to the remaining candidate, Lan Kuer. Brute strength won't work. Lan Kuer frowned slightly and walked up, placing her hands on the sword. Instead of forcing it, she closed her eyes and tried to sense the sword, its emotions and the meaning it wished to convey. Since the demon-slaying sword had a sword spirit, it must have a will of its own. In her mind, everything went dark. Even Lan Kuer didn't know where the sword spirit had taken her consciousness. Endless demonic energy surged around her, filled with violence and despair. Various emotions mixed together, trying to erode Lan Kuer's mind. Her eyes gradually turned blood-red. Few could resist such demonic energy. Just as she was about to be consumed by it, a brilliant blue light suddenly burst from her body. Bathed in blue light, her hair turned azure, followed by her eyes and then her entire skin. In this state, Lan Kuer remained eerily calm. No matter how wildly the demonic energy raged around her, it could not disturb her heart. She looked around in surprise. From the day she began cultivating, she discovered she could enter this state. She never knew why, but in this form, her combat ability increased exponentially. Most importantly, She was completely unaffected by external influences. Cold to the extreme. Maybe I really am born to slay demons, Lan Kuer muttered with a wry smile. The black mist before her dispersed, and at last she saw the sword spirit within the demon-slaying sword. Outside, Lan Kuer slowly opened her eyes. She smiled at Lan Juntian, then gently lifted her right hand. The demon-slaying sword rose easily into the air. How is this possible? Some of the youths exclaimed in disbelief. Seeing this, Lan Juntian finally let out a sigh of relief. He pointed toward the failed candidates and said, "Take them away and erase this memory. Until the heaven demon appears, no one is allowed to leak anything about the demon slayer." Then he turned to Lan Kuer and smiled. "Kuer, come with me. There are things I need to tell you." Su Zimo slowly closed the book in his hand. "Demon-slaying clan," he said with a faint smile, gazing into the distant sky.
Lan Kia, ha.
He continued browsing the shelf and came upon a book titled Age of the Empress, which caught his attention. Sunlight poured through the window. Su Zimo sat on the floor and began reading with interest. She was hailed as one of the greatest emperors in the history of the true martial sacred ground. Perhaps her life alone could be called legendary. Jiang Macho stepped out from the endless sky sea, eyes gazing toward the distant direction of the supreme primal sacred ground. His master, the Lord of Nihility, had told him there was no retreat in the battle against the Infernal Lord. Once he set foot on that path, there would be no return. He knew that before starting his journey, he had to visit the supreme primal sacred ground. Tangeline, guided by the evil god List, finally met the sage who created the list and prepared his second battle physique. The great era was about to begin. The stage was set. Whether they were common folk or powerful figures, everyone had their role, their destiny, and their story. In a remote mountain ravine far in the west, Bailey Shao slowly crawled out of a cave. Here lay the fortune of her past life. She had once been the Jade Purity Immortal. Before reincarnating, she had hidden her legacy here, just in case. With this inheritance, she could begin her path to power more quickly. Chapter 306 Return of the Core Disciples. "When will you help me get revenge?" Bailey Shao asked impatiently. "Wait," Lin Yuqing replied calmly. "How much longer? With true martial sacred grounds resources helping him, he's only going to get stronger," Bailey Shao said anxiously. "I never do anything I'm not confident in." Lin Yuqing stood at the entrance of the cave and said flatly, "I've already reclaimed my soaring immortal physique. And now that Sacred Lord Shao has returned to the true martial sacred ground, I believe he'll recognize my identity. Once I've fully merged this inheritance, my strength will greatly increase. By then, it will be the end for Su Zimo." As night gradually fell, Su Zimo slowly closed the book in his hands and walked out of the scripture pavilion. The life of the Grand Empress truly was a great one. Perhaps from the moment she began cultivating, her story was destined to be legendary. Su Zimo had also found the information he was looking for. Back then, the Empress had gathered 8 myriad Tao lotuses. The white lotus was left in her inheritance. The green lotus was placed in the sect's sword-washing pool. The blue lotus was given to her top general, the Jade Purity Immortal. And the red lotus had been traded away to the blood race at a great cost. If the records were correct, the 10,000 Tao red lotus should now be in the hands of the blood race. The blood race wasn't considered a large race. But their long history, strictly in terms of depth, wasn't much shorter than that of the human race. In the following days, Su Zimo stayed on South Goose Mountain. Aside from resting, he focused on studying the mysteries of his true fate world. Until one day, an earth-shaking beast roar erupted within the true fate world. There were 9 roars in total, each louder than the last. At that moment, the blood of the 9 ancient god beasts within his true fate world had finally begun to take shape. As they started forming, chaos was already guarding them closely. Spirit force surged madly across the sky, all pouring into the forming blood. The beast roars grew increasingly fierce, as if tearing through the sky. These 9 god beasts newly formed were like 9 new species. They had no memories of their past lives, and no god meridian realm strength. They were merely 9 newborn beasts with the potential to grow into god beasts. The god world was vast and boundless. By now, the 100 dragon cubs could already move independently. Chaos carved out his own territory in one corner of the god world. He led the 100 dragons and the 9 newborn god beasts to live there. Unlike humans who built houses, beasts lived off the land. Some dug caves in mountains, others slept sprawled out on tree branches. These were the first indigenous creatures of the god world. Chaos named their territory the Myriad Beast Realm. This became the first power to form on the god world. Meanwhile, Su Zimo continued to enjoy peaceful and quiet days on South Goose Mountain. But after a long period of calm, the true martial sacred ground had begun to bustle with life again. Each year, the lineage held a martial arts competition. All disciples of the lineage could participate. In any environment, competition brings pressure and motivation. The martial arts competition ranked all participating disciples by performance, and those rankings determined resource allocation and personalized training. According to sect rules, the top 3 on the ranking board would earn the right to challenge the Holy Sun. If the Holy Sun lost 3 years in a row, the sect would choose a new Holy Sun. The competition didn't just involve inner and outer court disciples. Many personal disciples who had been out traveling also returned for it. The sky was an endless stretch of blue. The autumn wind howled below. The sun hung high in the sky, its golden light spreading like a field of gold. A wide blue sword streaked through the sky from afar, flying toward the sect. As it neared the mountain gate, it slowly descended. With the competition approaching, the whole sect was in a frenzy. Disciples trained day and night, pushing themselves to the limit. Seeing the arrival of the blue sword, some disciples furrowed their brows. They found it familiar, but couldn't immediately recall it. "Isn't that Senior Brother Xia Zai?" one disciple asked uncertainly. "Senior Brother Xia Zai," the other disciple suddenly realized, nodding quickly. "He's the Vice Lord's personal disciple. Back then, he roamed half of the western region with just his wave-chasing sword. It's been 3 years since he last returned from his journey." The senior disciples nearby all nodded. As people were still discussing, another beam of light flew in from afar. This time it was a man and a woman, each flying on a sword and a blade. They wore traditional scholar-style robes. The man's was black, the woman's white. Same style, giving off a couple-like vibe. Seeing them arrive, a disciple below exclaimed in surprise. "Fairy Xingjian and young Master Daoyang are back too." Of course, they're personal disciples of the 5th Grand Elder. It didn't matter if they skipped past years. But now that we have a Holy Sun, it's only natural they return to challenge him. "Look over there. Even Xiang Qianheng the Overlord is back." As more disciples returned, the once quiet sect turned lively again. A giant rock flew overhead, its beastly aura sweeping across the sky. It blocked out the sun as it soared past. On its back stood a man in golden robes. Xiang Qianheng is a personal disciple of Sacred Lord Shao. It's said that when he left the sacred ground years ago, he was already unmatched among the younger generation. Who knows what level he's reached now? As the crowd praised in amazement, snowflakes suddenly began to fall from the sky. A cold storm mixed with white snow drifted down, strangely limited only to the true martial sacred ground. Elsewhere, the sun was still shining brightly. Amid the swirling snow, a woman in a flowing gown, woven from purple and white, walked gracefully forward. Her long black hair stood out vividly in the snowy scene. As she approached, she resembled a plum blossom in winter, proud and cold. With each step, her dress fluttered, swaying in the wind. It was like a heavenly melody echoing in the sky. The heavens themselves began to freeze, and the sound of cracking ice echoed all around. "That's Heartless Fairy Jiang Shi'er." Gasps of awe filled the crowd, especially from the Sacred Ground's senior disciples. Once their goddess, Jiang Shi'er's fame within the true martial sacred ground was unmatched. As more and more disciples returned, the entire lineage became filled with celebration and excitement. Chapter 307 Legendary Furnace. Su Zimo was lying on a lounge chair in the courtyard of South Goose Mountain, sunbathing. The liveliness outside and the tranquility within the courtyard felt like two separate worlds. At that moment, a disciple came to call him, saying that his father, Su Qingshan, wanted to see him. Without delay, Su Zimo went to Green Mountain. Outside the mountain, the scenery was lush and layered. Aside from Su Qingshan, there was a young man standing next to him. The youth wore a blue robe and carried a long sword on his back, his gaze sharp and focused. His sword was unlike ordinary swords. The sword blade was nearly half a meter wide. The hilt was engraved with a flowing river. It looked very vivid, as if staring at it too long, you could hear the sound of waves crashing in your ears. "Senior Brother Xia," Su Zimo greeted softly when he saw the young man. This was Xia Zai, a direct disciple of his father Su Qingshan. Su Qingshan had 3 disciples in his life, and Xia Zai was the third. Back in the day, he and Su Zimo had a decent relationship. But due to cultivation and traveling outside the sacred ground, they hadn't seen each other in years. "Junior Brother Zimo," Xia Zai smiled warmly. "It's been years, and you've grown so fast. You're already the holy son of true martial sacred ground. Well done." Su Zimo smiled and shook his head, asking, "Senior Brother Xia, did you come back to join the competition?" "Sort of. With you, the holy son, this year will be much more exciting. Who wouldn't want to challenge you?" Xia Zai joked. "You know," Su Zimo replied, "even though you direct disciples are decades older and have been cultivating far longer than I have, I still don't see any of you as competition." "It's fine to be confident," Su Qingshan interjected, "but never underestimate others. None of them are simple. Chaos is your meridian beast now. Since meridian beasts are part of your combat power, if you find yourself in a tough spot, let chaos out. No one will blame you for it." "Don't worry, Junior Brother Zimo," Xia Zai smiled. "I'll protect you. For now, let Zai stay on South Goose Mountain with you." "It's been a while since you two met," Su Qingshan said. Su Zimo nodded and didn't object. As the two of them walked down the mountain, Xia Zai threw an arm around Su Zimo's shoulder, squinting with a grin. "Little Zimo, got any girls you like these years? Tell your senior brother, you must have broken a few hearts, right? You think everyone's like you?" Su Zimo rolled his eyes. This guy acted like a tame cat in front of Su Qingshan, but in private he was shameless. "It's been so long. I wonder how my old friends are doing," Xia Zai sighed. "You have friends?" Su Zimo asked in surprise. "Of course," Xia Zai snorted. "Like Xiang Qianheng, and that sword and blade couple Daoyang and Xingjian. I also wonder what happened to my goddess." "Who's your goddess?" Su Zimo asked. "You seriously don't know?" "How would I know? A guy like you can't even walk when he sees a pretty girl. Every girl is your goddess." "Bullshit," Xia Zai quickly replied. "My goddess is Jiang Shir." Su Zimo thought for a moment and then said, "Oh, then you're probably out of luck. She cultivates the path of heartlessness." "What's that got to do with me?" Xia Zai said indifferently. "I like her body, not her heart. Gonna force your way in?" Su Zimo turned his head. They looked at each other and burst out laughing. Graceful Willow Mountain was where the 6th Grand Elder of true martial sacred ground, Shao Yuexian, resided. After the destruction of Yinyang sect, due to her various actions, she was put under confinement by Su Qingshan. No one was allowed to visit her during this confinement. Once one of the liveliest peaks in the sacred ground, Willow Mountain had fallen silent. Other than a few of Shao Yuexian's old maids, it was rare to see anyone there. At this moment, snow drifted down from above as Jiang Shir's figure landed quietly on the peak. As Shao Yuexian's personal disciple, she hadn't seen her master in a long time. Though she cultivated the path of heartlessness, her Tao was still shallow. Now that she thought of her master, she couldn't help but feel emotional. Upon arriving, She found the courtyard unusually quiet, with only a few maids around. "Where's master?" she asked one of the maids with a frown. You. The maid stammered upon seeing Jiang Shi, not reacting at first. "What's going on?" Jiang Shi's heart suddenly felt uneasy. The maid snapped back to attention and explained everything in detail. When she heard Xiao Yuexian was confined, Jiang Shi's eyes turned red, and the cold aura around her grew stronger. A thick layer of frost instantly formed in the surrounding space. "I'm going to seek justice from the Sacred Lord," she said, then turned and flew toward Heaven Genesis Mountain. The martial arts competition would be held in the Skyjade world. During the Six Holy Lands gathering, when Su Zimo was named Holy Sun, the matches were also held there. Lately, the sacred ground had been busy setting up the battlefield at Skyjade World. Meanwhile, the returning personal disciples gathered joyfully amid a tense atmosphere. As the third-generation emperor of the sacred ground, although the name of the Grand Emperor Shenxing wasn't widely known, his contributions to the sacred ground's development were immense. In his youth, during a training expedition outside the sacred ground, he accidentally obtained a furnace left behind by a legendary era powerhouse. It was said that at its peak, the furnace could refine pills, refine people, and even refine the heavens. But by the time the emperor acquired it, it was already severely damaged. After surviving the legendary era, the desolate era, and the imperial era, the furnace had long decayed. The sacred ground spent enormous effort and resources to repair it, eventually restoring its first two functions. The technique to refine the heavens was lost forever. Even so, with only two functions, this furnace was far beyond any ordinary universe-grade treasure. Pills refined with it, using the same techniques and materials, were not only top-tier for their level. More terrifyingly, the furnace could forcefully elevate a pill by one whole grade. As for its refining people function, the fire inside could completely purge the impurities from a person's body. This effect worked on all cultivators below the arcane immortal realm. Without impurities, martial artists would find it much easier to cultivate and open their meridian gates. Chapter 308 Jiang Shi questions the crime. Even more terrifying, this furnace can help living beings reshape their physical bodies. It allows one's body to become more balanced, more in tune with the laws of heaven and earth. It also makes it easier to control one's body and power. The only downside of the furnace is that it consumes a huge amount of resources. Each use requires a massive expenditure. So the true martial sacred ground has a rule. Anyone who places in the top 3 of the martial arts competition is granted one use of the furnace. Su Zimo, when he became a Holy Sun, also had a chance to use it. But he didn't need the furnace and felt there was no need. Most of the disciples who returned to participate in the martial arts competition actually came for the furnace. At this moment on South Goose Mountain, Su Zimo was sunbathing while drinking wine and casually flipping through a book. These books were ones he had obtained from within the heaven-severing sacred ground. They contained many of the sacred ground's secrets, and he would read them when he was bored. Sometimes he could gather useful intel. Looking at Su Zimo's relaxed posture, Xia Zai asked in confusion, "Little Momo, you don't seem worried at all. When the time comes, many people will be targeting you, the Holy Sun. I'm sure a lot of people would love to see you make a fool of yourself. Haters gonna hate. It is what it is." Su Zimo responded calmly with a shrug. "Man, you really are as steady as a mountain," Xia Zai muttered, then said, "Let me tell you, Holy Sun is just a title. Though your status is higher in the sacred ground, many core disciples don't take you seriously in private. Walk your own path. Why care what others think?" Su Zimo replied with a faint smile. "As long as they don't block my way, I don't care. I just went out and asked around. Several heavyweight core disciples have returned," Xia Zai said. "Their cultivation levels are at least at the Imperial Meridian stage. Can you handle that? When the boat reaches the bridge, it will straighten itself," Su Zimo replied with a smile and a wave. At this moment on Heaven Genesis Mountain, Jiang Shi came down from the mountain with an unpleasant expression. The words of Sacred Lord Shao still echoed faintly in her ears. "This is the sacred ground. Without rules, nothing can be accomplished. Since the sixth Grand Elder broke the rules, putting her in confinement is already showing her enough favor. Jiang Shi took a deep breath and looked through the thick immortal mist, murmuring softly, Su Zimo, this matter started because of you. You targeted Sister Bailey for no reason, and even implicated my master. She took one step into the air and headed straight for South Goose Mountain. Although Su Zimo was the Holy Son, she felt no fear. Their generation of core disciples had cultivated decades longer than Su Zimo's. Naturally, they were stronger. Endless snowflakes scattered across the sky, a mighty spectacle. As the white snow fell, Jiang Shi's expression turned icy, her purple dress nearly frozen by the frost. On South Goose Mountain, Su Zimo suddenly felt a chill while sunbathing. He looked toward the distant horizon and smiled at Xia Zai. Your goddess is here. What? Xia Zai was startled. Seeing the snow flying in the sky, he immediately realized. No way. She didn't come here just to find me, right? Quite likely. Su Zimo nodded in agreement. Xia Zai quickly adjusted his hair and asked Su Zimo, how do I look? Handsome. Handsome beyond measure. Su Zimo nodded. About half as good-looking as me. As the temperature in the sky dropped and the snow came closer, Xia Zai stepped into the air and walked toward Jiang Shi. The snow gradually dissipated, revealing Jiang Shi's cold, frosty face. Xia Zai felt a jolt in his heart. Something felt wrong. Junior Sister Jiang, he greeted with a smile. Is something wrong?
Jiang Elfer asked coldly.
Xia Zai quickly shook his head and stepped aside. Jiang Shi took a deep breath and looked down toward South Goose Mountain, shouting sternly, Su Zimo, get out here. Her voice was powerful, echoing across half the sky. Disciples around the true martial sacred ground looked over from afar, watching with interest. TSK, Junior Sister Jiang still has such a temper. No idea what this new Holy Son did to upset her. On Heaven Genesis Mountain, Sacred Lord Shao muttered with interest. Good chance to test each other's strength. Su Zimo looked up and smiled lightly. This kind of scene didn't surprise him. It must be about the sixth elder. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had any interaction. Su Zimo stayed reclining on his chair. Fighting didn't interest him much. But if he had to fight, he'd crush the opponent in one blow. Xia Zai frowned at the scene and asked, Junior Sister Jiang, did Zimo offend you somehow? This has nothing to do with you, Jiang Shi replied coldly. Zimo is my master's son. His affairs are my affairs. Xia Zai replied firmly. So what? Are you going to fight me? Jiang Shi asked with cold eyes. If you want to trouble Zimo, then fighting isn't a problem. Xia Zai slowly drew the broad sword on his back, eyes sharp. Enough. This isn't the place for you two to fight. A voice came from South Goose Mountain, breaking the tension. Jiang Shi looked toward the voice and saw Su Zimo slowly walking over. Su Zimo, she said each word harshly. Don't act like you've suffered so much. Some people brought this on themselves. Su Zimo said lightly. If you really want to fight me, I'll be waiting at the martial arts competition. Right now, it's not the time or place. Hearing Su Zimo's words, Jiang Shi took a deep breath and looked around. She knew countless eyes were watching them, including some high-ranking figures. They would definitely stop any real fight. Fine, I'll be waiting, Jiang Shi said, then turned and left with a flick of her sleeve. Many disciples hiding in the shadows were disappointed the fight didn't happen and left as well. Xia Zai looked at Su Zimo and asked seriously, How did you provoke her? Sometimes you don't need to provoke anyone. Trouble finds you. Su Zimo replied with a smile. What? Worried about your goddess? You're still joking at a time like this? Xia Zai said. Even I'm not confident I can beat her. So little faith in me? Su Zimo smiled, gazing into the distance and said faintly, This martial arts competition, I'm going to surprise everyone. The martial arts competition was set for 3 days later. In the meantime, the true martial sacred ground remained unusually quiet. Like the calm before a storm, Chapter 309, Preparing for Chaos to Advance to the Immortal Path. 3 days before the start of the martial arts competition, Su Zimo was preparing for something. Chaos had been stuck at the peak of the God Meridian realm for a long time but still hadn't stepped into the path of immortality. This also showed just how difficult it was to enter the immortal path. Many people get stuck in the God Meridian realm for their entire lives and never make the breakthrough. The biggest difference between the God Meridian realm and stepping into immortality is the separation of mortals and immortals, and the dramatic increase in lifespan. Most strong cultivators in the immortal path no longer need to rely on dust-blood coffins to extend their lives, unless they come from an extremely ancient time. For humans to step into the immortal path, they must open the 9th meridian gate, Voidrend. This is commonly referred to as the Immortal Gate. It involves building a bridge of heaven and earth inside the body to reach the other shore. The method for demonic beasts is similar, except their meridian gates open from the outside in, making it much harder. Also, since demonic beasts are generally stronger at the same level, the blood energy and comprehension needed for them to break through is far greater than for humans. Su Zimo had recently been studying how demonic beasts break through. According to the books, aside from a beast's own comprehension, external aids could stimulate and assist them. One such aid was a pill mentioned in the book. The Bloodthirst Immortal Approach Pill. It involves fusing the essence blood of a Devour Ancestor Beast, Blood Desolate Grass, Heavenly Arrival Flower, and Broken Immortal Soul. With the help of other supporting spirit medicines, this pill can be refined. Of course, since each beast has different attributes, the most important of the 4 main ingredients, the Heavenly Arrival Flower, can be swapped out based on the beast's attribute. Chaos's attribute, though classified as devouring, leans more toward fire, so the Heavenly Arrival Flower doesn't need to be replaced. As for the other 3 main ingredients, Su Zimo decided to go check the herb garden. This was one of the perks of being the Holy Son. If he needed something, the sect would give it to him for free. If they didn't have it, they would do their best to find it. The herb garden was located in the southwest of the true martial sacred ground. It was the sect's largest herb field, home to many rare and worldly unseen spiritual herbs. It's said that long ago, an alchemy sage once emerged from the true martial sacred ground. His understanding of medicinal theory and herb cultivation was unmatched across the entire primordial heartlands at the time. However, the alchemy sage was so obsessed and fanatical about spiritual herbs that he never really focused on cultivating himself. Despite the sect's best efforts, they still couldn't help him break into the immortal realm. Though he remained a God Meridian realm martial artist, many immortal path alchemists would still come to him for advice. When the lifespan of a God Meridian cultivator ran out, the alchemy sage didn't want to live inside a dust-blood coffin. He chose to pass away in peace under the heavens. It is said that when he passed, all the flowers wept, trees groaned, and rain poured from the sky. From that day forward, the land became sacred. Herbs planted in this divine soil would grow on their own with little human care. Not only did they have a high survival rate, but they could also revert to ancient forms. Their growth cycle was much faster, too. After heavy cultivation by the sect, this place became known as the Herb Garden. The Herb Garden was usually managed by the 3rd Grand Elder, who was also Lin Ruhu's grandfather. When Su Zimo arrived, he spoke a few words with the disciple at the gate and walked right in. The garden stretched over nearly 1,000 miles, filled with endless flowers, grass, and trees. Aside from the thick medicinal scent in the air, there was also a faint floral fragrance. Purple Rhythm Dragon Emperor Ginseng, 8-point Black Ice Grass, Polar Venom Demon Vine, Sun Tree, 9-tailed Dragon Sunflower, these rare and legendary herbs that would cause chaos in the outside world were everywhere here. They felt almost common. There were also many demonic beasts living in the herb garden. These beasts coexisted with the herbs and helped each other thrive. Just like bees pollinate flowers, animals also benefit plant growth. Su Zimo walked deeper in, through lush forests, down shaded paths filled with thick floral and herbal aromas. At the center of the garden stood a simple little thatched hut. A crystal-clear river flowed gently by its side. This was no ordinary water, it was true spirit liquid. These immortal-grade herbs were irrigated with actual spirit liquid. Only an imperial lineage could afford such extravagance. An old man in a green robe strolled through the herb garden. He carefully tended each plant, pruning some, loosening roots on others, and harvesting mature fruits. He carried a basket in hand and walked at a steady, unhurried pace, clearly enjoying the work, as if it wasn't a job but a pleasure. Third Grand Elder, Su Zimo called softly. The third Grand Elder had a calm personality, and thanks to Lin Ruhu, Su Zimo was more familiar with him than the other elders. "Ah, little Mo." The third Grand Elder turned with a gentle smile. "What brings you here?" "I wanted to ask about a few spirit herbs. I'm not sure if our herb garden has them," Su Zimo replied with a smile. "Go ahead." The third Grand Elder nodded. Su Zimo then listed the 4 main ingredients. The other supporting herbs weren't important. After hearing him out, the third Grand Elder paused slightly and asked, "These herbs are all related to demonic beasts, aren't they? Do we have them?" Su Zimo nodded and asked, "The Devour Ancestor Beast's essence blood desolate grass, and heavenly arrival flower shouldn't be a problem." The third Grand Elder thought for a bit and replied, "But this broken immortal soul is indeed rare. I haven't heard of it in thousands of years." "Then just give me the other 3. I'll find the broken immortal soul myself when I get the chance," Su Zimo said after thinking it over. "Sure. Just file a request with the lineage. If the Sacred Lord approves it, I'll get everything ready for you," the third Grand Elder said with a smile. "With your status as Holy Son, it shouldn't be an issue." After chatting a bit more, Su Zimo left the herb garden. The broken immortal soul was truly rare. It said that during the Desolate Era, there was a plant called the illusory immortal vine. Every 100 years it would grow 5 gourds. Though the gourds had no life, they carried divine souls. People referred to those divine souls as immortal souls, because immortal souls were very helpful in opening meridian gates. Whenever the vine appeared, people would fight fiercely over it. Over time, the divine souls from those gourds came to be known as broken immortal souls. After leaving the herb garden, Su Zimo rested on South Goose Mountain for 3 days. Time passed quickly, and the true martial sacred ground's grandest and most anticipated event of the year, the martial arts competition, finally began in the Skyjade world. Chapter 310, the tournament begins. At the break of dawn, the blue sky was dotted with white clouds, like a beautiful painting. The morning air felt especially fresh. Disciples of the true martial sacred ground had dressed neatly and were heading with full energy to gather at the entrance of the Skyjade world. Some came to witness the exciting matches of the day. After all, it wasn't often that so many top talents gathered in one place. Others came to fight for a better ranking. All the hard work up to this point was finally about to be displayed. The disciples filed in one after another. The Skyjade world was a vast and boundless particle world. Even if every disciple in the sacred ground entered, it wouldn't feel crowded. At the center stood 100 arenas forged from black tortoise true iron, like warriors standing firm at the edge of heaven and earth. As always, they were rooted deep into the ground. This tournament wasn't only about combat. There were also competitions in alchemy, formations, and other professions. Of course, the highlight remained the combat events. This was also the first large-scale tournament hosted by Sacred Lord Shao since his return. Wearing golden robes, he stood at the front of the arena with an imposing presence. The might of the God Meridian realm roared around him. A storm of spirit force surged in the sky above. His aura was overwhelming, shaking heaven and earth. It was a clear sign that he had broken into the God Meridian realm. At the top of the arena, there were more than a dozen seats. Besides Sacred Lord Shao, Vice Lord Su Qingshan, in his green robe, also arrived slowly from a distance. His aura from the Empyrean Meridian realm was just as impressive. The pressure he emitted kept growing stronger. He was clearly at the edge of breaking into the God Meridian realm as well. As for the so-called 7 Grand Elders, with the 6th Grand Elder in confinement, only 6 remained. All 6 elders wore white robes and walked powerfully toward the top seats. Their steps were heavy, and every movement carried the power to stir the wind and clouds. A disciple in the distance was beating a war drum. The sounds of the drum echoed throughout the land. With each strike of the red drumstick, the red cloth tied to it fluttered in the wind. The atmosphere grew tense and pressing, like the calm before a storm. The war drum raised the energy of the crowd to a peak. It seemed to ignite the fighting spirit in everyone. With the arrival of several core disciples, the atmosphere became even more fiery and intense, as if the entire scene was ready to explode. Overlord Xiang Qianheng, heartless fairy Jiang Xier, wave-chasing swordsman Xia Zihe, formation master Zhu Ming, undefeated sword monarch. When these legendary core disciples gathered, the atmosphere became electric. Su Zimo looked at the disciples below, full of fighting spirit, and smiled lightly. As the Holy Son, he didn't need to participate in the tournament. Like the 6 elders, he had a dedicated seat at the top. For the average disciple of the true martial sacred ground, these core disciples were the ones they looked up to. They were the true geniuses. But for Su Zimo, their battles were no more than child's play. After this tournament, he planned to leave the true martial sacred ground. It was also time to consider his breakthrough into the Empyrean Meridian realm. There was the promise he made with the Dark Primordials, and the journey to the Buddha Burial Temple still needed to be fulfilled. Sacred Lord Shao stood at the front of the arena, his sharp gaze sweeping over the disciples who had come to compete or spectate. "You are the future hope of our sacred ground." He spoke loudly and clearly. There's no denying that high-level power is the foundation of a sacred ground's strength. But you, the younger generation, even if you're weak now, I believe that one day you will become the future of the sacred ground, determining our limits. I'm proud and honored to have you as part of this family. He paused for a moment, then slowly exhaled before raising his voice again. I hope in this tournament, everyone gives their all to earn a good ranking, because it will determine the sacred ground's investment in your future and the resources allocated to you. Every one of you is qualified to compete. The tournament will be conducted with absolute fairness. With Sacred Lord Zhao's announcement, the entire Skyjade world erupted with cheers and excitement. The rules of the tournament were relatively simple. Outer Sacred Ground disciples would fight other Outer Sacred Ground disciples. Inner Sacred Ground disciples would fight among themselves. The main event would be the battles between core disciples. Of course, the top 3 winners among the Outer and Inner Sacred Ground disciples would get a chance to challenge the core disciples. This was always the most exciting part of the annual tournament. Even though most inner disciples would lose against the core disciples, there were always a few dark horses. Core disciples had trained for far longer, and were nurtured by the 7 elders. Those with great talent were mostly at the peak of the Imperial Meridian realm. Even the weaker ones were already at early Imperial Meridian level. In contrast, the strongest Inner Sacred Ground disciples were only at the peak of the Paragon Meridian realm. The higher the realm, the harder the breakthroughs. Wu Feng versus Shao Xian, Zhuoyan versus Cheng Yu. As the first Grand Elder announced the matchups, disciples stepped onto the arena one by one. All 100 arenas began matches simultaneously. This greatly improved the pace of the tournament. Fights between Outer Sacred Ground disciples weren't very exciting, their cultivation levels were low, and they lacked combat experience. However, some high-ranking observers watched carefully, likely scouting for talent. Compared to them, the battles between inner disciples were far more intense. Su Zimo had his eye on Ji Baiyu. She had inherited the legacy of Grand Emperor Fei Yu and was ahead in both resources and cultivation. With her peak Paragon Meridian strength, she easily defeated her opponents. There was also a boy named Gao Xiong. Though his cultivation wasn't top tier, only peak Desolate Meridian, he had the bloodline of an ancient tyrant bear, giving him strength unmatched for his realm. Even a Paragon Meridian cultivator might not be able to face him head-on. There weren't many impressive inner disciples. By Su Zimo's standards, only one truly caught his eye. A short-haired young man in a light blue long robe. His eyes were cold, and he wielded a long halberd forged from black iron. His moves were bold and forceful, showing great pride and presence. The halberd was 3 meters long, entirely black. Golden dragons were engraved along its body. It was clearly no ordinary weapon. Every swing of the youth's halberd cracked the iron arena beneath him. He wasn't just at the peak of the Paragon Meridian realm. His combat experience and mastery of techniques were also superb. He was clearly someone who had grown through fire and blood. "What's that guy's name?" Su Zimo asked the elder beside him. Chapter 311 Dugueo, the heaven-cracking halberd. "Him? What, you're interested too?" The elder next to him chuckled and replied, "His name is Dugueo. He joined the sacred ground a year ago, and his cultivation was outstanding from the start. He practically challenged all the top disciples on the Hidden Dragon ranking 1 by 1, and didn't lose a single fight. He's the most promising disciple in this batch." "Interesting." Su Zimo narrowed his eyes slightly and asked, "Does he have a master?" Hearing Su Zimo's question, the elder glanced at the Grand Elder, as if hesitant to speak. "What is it?" Su Zimo asked curiously. "Speak freely. It's nothing serious," the Grand Elder replied calmly. "I had wanted to take him as my personal disciple, but unfortunately, he turned me down." "Really now?" Su Zimo smiled and looked at the young man in the arena with interest. The elder next to him nodded and said, "It said his master is a hidden expert. He came out this time just to make his master's name known. Then he'll likely challenge a core disciple." Su Zimo smiled. At noon, the sunlight filtered through the clouds. What had been a clear sky suddenly turned overcast. The blue sky turned gray. The sun was covered by dark clouds, and from deep within the clouds came occasional rolls of thunder. The inner court competition had ended, and the top 3 had been decided. They were Dugueo, Ji Baiyu, and a youth named Zhuoyan. Gao Xiong was very strong too, but due to his lower realm, he ultimately lost narrowly to Zhuoyan. The elder stepped forward and looked seriously at the 3 of them. "As per the rules, each of you has the chance to challenge a core disciple. If you win, you'll earn 1 use of the legendary furnace. Do you want to challenge?" "I'll pass." Zhuoyan shook his head. Ji Baiyu hesitated, then also shook her head. She had been caught up in the matter of the 7 ancients of the North Sea lately, leaving her little focus for cultivation. Only Dugueo's eyes remained sharp as he looked toward the core disciples. Xiang Qianheng leaned lazily against a stone platform and chuckled. "Looks like this year's inner court still has some feisty ones. Wonder who's going to get underestimated." Xia Zai said casually, wiping his broadsword. Undefeated sword monarch slightly raised his head. His gaze filled with sharp sword intent as if countless sword auras surged out. He stared only at Xiang Qianheng, ignoring everyone else. "I challenge Su Zai." Dugueo paused for a moment, then said slowly. Hearing that name, everyone turned to look at the white-robed young man nearby. Su Zai, he was the youngest personal disciple of the second Grand Elder. Although not extremely talented, he had stepped into the early Imperial Meridian realm. Now hearing Dugueo's challenge, his face turned grim with a hint of humiliation. "Little Zai, looks like someone's looking down on you," Dao Yang said with a gentle smile. Su Zai exhaled slowly and picked up his long saber, walking step by step onto the arena. "I'll break his legs." The dark clouds above gathered thicker and denser, and the sky had already dimmed a lot. Looking up, the rumbling thunder seemed to roar in fury. On the black iron arena, Su Zai and Dugueo stood facing each other. "You'll regret this choice," Su Zai said as saber energy surged around him. All 6 of his vein gates were open. This was the full pressure of an Imperial Meridian cultivator. A wild wind howled through the area with every breath he took. "You'll lose," Dugueo said calmly. The long halberd in his hand trembled slightly, as if eager for battle and hard to suppress. From the upper seats, Su Zimo looked toward the Grand Elder and asked, "Grand Elder, who do you think will win?" "In theory, Su Zai should win," the Grand Elder replied calmly. Unless Duguayou has some hidden trump card. Then this should be worth watching, Su Zimo said with a stretch and a smile. Su Zhe held his long saber, releasing a blade aura several meters long. He leapt into the air, gripping the saber with both hands and slashed down toward Duguayou. Duguayou didn't back down either. He spun his iron halberd a few times as pressure from his Paragon Meridian realm surged. Dark spirit force swirled on his right hand, and the halberd tip lunged forward with force. Boom! Endless saber energy and spirit force exploded outward. Duguayou was pushed back several steps, and cracks spread across the iron arena beneath his feet. His hands holding the halberd trembled slightly, still a bit forced. Seeing this, even Su Zhe was slightly stunned. They were a full realm apart. Yet the opponent had taken his strike head-on without injury, only slightly less powerful. He gripped his saber tighter. If they were at the same level, he couldn't imagine the outcome. That's all you've got? Su Zhe scoffed, refusing to admit weakness. His spirit force surged, and he pressed forward, giving Duguayou no room to breathe. Duguayou held his halberd. Its long reach gave him strength, and the halberd tip radiated endless spirit force, slicing through the surrounding space. However, Su Zhe's offensive was too fierce. Over time, Duguayou was beginning to struggle. Just as he was about to be knocked off the arena, Duguayou gave a sharp shout. He rolled to the ground, narrowly dodging a saber slash, and moved to the other side of the arena. What now? All that arrogance, and now you're just dodging, Su Zhe said with disdain, saber aura raging around him. Duguayou exhaled deeply and slammed the halberd down hard. The arena cracked beneath him, the halberd driven a few centimeters deep into the ground. The dark spirit force around him began to surge wildly. He closed his eyes slightly and gripped the halberd at its center. As the dark energy flowed, it formed the shape of a flying dragon at the halberd's tip. At the same time, the engraved dragon patterns on the halberd began to glow faintly. Aoer, I began practicing the heaven-cracking halberd at age 7. By 40, I had mastered halberd arts and swept through half of the eastern continent. At 100, I gave up the halberd. Grass, wood, bamboo, stone, all could become my weapon. But to keep the divine weapon from gathering dust, I now pass it to you. Do not bring shame to my name. Duguayou slowly opened his eyes as the wind howled before him. His master's words from his youth echoed in his ears. War halberd art, he said firmly and powerfully. Then he slightly stepped forward with his right foot. The embedded halberd shot up into the air. He and the halberd seemed to merge into one. Gripping the airborne halberd tightly with his right hand, he thrust it straight at Su Zhe. Boom! The halberd tip carried a burst of dazzling spirit force. Chapter 312, The Tournament Continues. Seeing the long halberd tear through the air, Su Zhe frowned slightly. The sharp aura surrounding it made his expression shift. He slowly raised his long saber. The blade's edge radiated fierce intent, and pale blue spirit force raged around it. The two clashed again with a loud boom. Endless spirit force exploded in all directions. Both figures staggered back several steps. For a moment, it was impossible to tell who had the upper hand. Su Zhe's frown deepened. He felt that his opponent's strength had completely changed from earlier. Duguayou gave a sharp shout, spinning the halberd once more. The iron arena beneath his feet was shattered and mangled. Each swing of his halberd grew stronger. After a few more collisions, Su Zhe was faintly being suppressed. Dark spirit force swirled around the halberd, fracturing the space around them. War halberd art, Duguayou roared. He leapt into the air, slamming his halberd down onto Su Zhe's saber. Su Zhe staggered backward, nearing the edge of the arena. Suddenly, Duguayou bent the halberd's tip slightly and used the shaft as a pivot. Both feet flew up and struck Su Zhe hard in the abdomen. Su Zhe didn't even have time to react. His body flew out of the arena. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and slowly stood up, speaking reluctantly. I lost. Duguayou scanned the entire field, his voice cold. The name of my master is Heaven Defier. After saying this, Duguayao turned and walked off the stage. He had only taken a few steps before his body swayed and collapsed. The Grand Elder frowned and instantly stepped through the air to his side. Duguayao was covered in blood. Several blood vessels in his body had burst. He looked terribly injured. He wasn't strong enough. Using the war halberd art by force just now was practically suicide, the Grand Elder said, frowning. He immediately began treating Duguayao. Although Duguayao had won the match, the tournament had to continue. No one expected him to be this ruthless with himself. But with the core disciples' duels about to begin, everyone's attention shifted back. The core disciple matches begin now. With the elder's announcement, one by one, the core disciples stepped onto the stage. Though their numbers were small, only a few dozen, each one was a top talent. Even among them, there were differences in strength. The first round of fights began, dazzling the audience. Battles between Imperial Meridian cultivators were much more exciting to watch. As the tournament progressed, only a few familiar names remained among the core disciples. Xiang Qianheng, let's have a match. Undefeated Sword Monarch stepped forward, holding his sword calmly. Sure. Xiang Qianheng smiled lightly and stepped onto a nearby arena. Sister Sheer, let's go around too. Xia Zai glanced at Su Zimo, then turned to Jiang Sheer. Her eyes were icy as she stepped onto the stage without a word, her meaning clear. Then it's just us left. Zhu Ming smiled at Prince Daoyang and Star Sword Fairy. I'll take you both on. Prince Daoyang and Star Sword Fairy cultivated together and practiced joint techniques, so they always competed as a pair. As the matches began, the crowd focused on the first arena, where Xiang Qianheng faced undefeated Sword Monarch. Overlord Xiang Qianheng was said to be undefeated during his time training outside the sacred ground. He probably has a high chance of winning, some disciples in the crowd discussed. You don't know, do you? Xiang Qianheng once lost to undefeated Sword Monarch. Do you know why he's called the Undefeated? Because ever since joining true martial sacred ground, undefeated Sword Monarch has never lost a match. Setting aside the gossip below on the arena, undefeated Sword Monarch slowly drew the sword at his waist, his gaze calm. Did you know? I've been waiting years for this fight. A great honor, Xiang Qianheng replied with a smile. Undefeated Sword Monarch took a deep breath. The sword in his arms trembled slightly. Several years ago, in late autumn, the two most gifted core disciples had once dueled. Undefeated Sword Monarch won and was called the Undefeated ever since. But only he knew, his opponent had been injured at the time and couldn't fight at full strength. He'd never gotten over it. Xiang Qianheng didn't use a weapon. Red spirit force surged around his hands. He stepped forward into the air and charged straight at undefeated Sword Monarch. Undefeated Sword Monarch swung his sword. Countless waves of sword intent rang out through the air. A storm of sword aura engulfed them both as they fought. On the other arenas, Xia Zai and Jiang Sheer also showed no weakness. Xia Zai's wide sword slashed with the force to sever rivers, shattering layers of ice. Jiang Sheer's long hair flowed. An icy spirit force nearly froze the entire stage. Clad in a white dress and surrounded by white aura, she looked like a fairy descending to the mortal world. As for the other match, Zhu Ming was the 7th Grand Elder's personal disciple. His mastery of formation techniques was unmatched within the sacred ground. Prince Daoyang and Star Sword Fairy, with their joint cultivation, were equally formidable. The three were locked in a tight match with no clear winner. From the high seat, Su Zimo watched the battles with boredom. They really were like children playing. He was thinking about the road ahead. Back when he visited Holyflower region, he had obtained a strange stone in Fireflow City. At the time, the supreme netherglow within him had reacted strongly, suggesting a connection. But once he took the stone, it calmed down again. Perhaps the stone was related to the Supreme Yang solar illumination. He planned to study it carefully. After all, it might relate to the completion of his true fate world. That would be the main path forward. After the matter with the Buddha burial temple, he would also visit the northern continent. Su Zimo had a feeling that Paimon's fate was drawing closer. Perhaps it was almost time for him to leave. Then there was the matter of the Demon Slayer clan, the Lan clan. Just as Su Zimo was deep in thought, the loud roar from the crowd pulled him back. On the arena, the battles were nearing their end. Undefeated Sword Monarch's sword hummed violently. Half the sky was covered in his sword intent. When all that sword aura finally fell, the resulting destruction would be devastating. But Xiang Qianheng wasn't someone to be taken lightly. He was surrounded in red spirit force, but it wasn't fire. Chapter 313, All of You Come at Once. What he cultivated was the Flame Overlord Universe technique. The more domineering and fearless one was at heart, the more effective this technique became, and the stronger its power. At this moment, Xiang Qianheng stepped into the air and struck with his palm. Countless sword auras shattered beneath it. He ignored the sword intent that filled half the sky. His black robe fluttered in the wind. Under his messy bangs, his eyes radiated overwhelming dominance. With a cold snort, his palm slammed down, and red spirit force surged in all directions. The sky seemed to collapse under the pressure of his palm. Spirit force erupted. Space cracked. Countless strands of sword intent were obliterated within. Feeling the power of this palm, undefeated Sword Monarch narrowed his sword-like eyes. Flashes of light flickered in his gaze as all of his sword intent gathered together and slashed toward Xiang Qianheng. Boom! Dust scattered, and the shockwave of the explosion spread out. The arena beneath their feet split in half from the center. Everyone focused their attention and saw the two men still standing face to face, both looking calm. Who won? A disciple asked curiously. Undefeated Sword Monarch took a deep breath and silently stepped down from the stage. As he did, there was a crisp crack, his sword shattered in his hand. Xiang Qianheng wins, the elder on the side quickly announced. Ignoring the cheers from the crowd, undefeated Sword Monarch stared blankly at his broken sword. Elsewhere, Xia Zai swung his wide sword down. The wave-chasing sword cut through the empty void, bringing with it a towering wave that surged forward. It was as if the sword in his hand had turned into a vast ocean. He stood atop the stormy sea, his figure rising tens of thousands of feet high. Jiang Shir's gaze was calm, her expression as cold as frost. She extended her pale hand, her entire arm covered in a thin layer of ice. As the massive wave rushed in, she seemed like a tiny boat amidst the ocean. The wave rolled and surged, as if it would completely bury her. But with a light touch of her jade-like finger, crack, crack, the towering wave began to freeze. In an instant, half the sky was frozen solid. The chill was overwhelming. Xia Zai, standing on the wave, found his feet also encased in thick ice. Before he could react, Jiang Shir appeared in front of him. Her palm pierced through the void and struck his chest hard. Boom! The sky filled with icy explosions. The towering wave instantly transformed into a sword. Xia Zai was sent flying, sliding back several meters before stopping. He looked at the cold wave-chasing sword in his hand and sighed. Still two countered. Jiang Shir wins, the elder on the side quickly judged. On the last arena, though Prince Daoyang and Star Sword Fairy fought 2 against 1, they had no advantage. Zhu Ming, the personal disciple of the 7th Grand Elder, had cultivated the trapping formation technique. It greatly enhanced the power of his formations, and he was incredibly fast at setting them up. He trapped the two in separate formations. Without their joint technique, their strength dropped significantly, and they were defeated one after the other. As the top 3 winners emerged, the crowd cheered their names. The final rankings would be decided by matches between the 3 of them. Elder Dash, just as the referee elder was about to make an announcement, Jiang Shir interrupted. Do the top 3 have the right to challenge the Holy Sun? According to the rules, yes. The elder nodded. I don't care about the tournament rankings. Even 3rd place means nothing to me. Jiang Shir said coldly. I just want to challenge the current Holy Sun. Su Zimo smiled as he met her icy gaze. He slowly stood from his seat. What's going on? Does Jiang Shi have a grudge against the Holy Sun? Disciples in the crowd who didn't know the truth started murmuring. Some guessed, probably because of the sixth Grand Elder. Otherwise, they wouldn't have any conflict. Damn. Little Momo's in trouble now, Xiazai muttered with a frown. The other core disciples watched with interest. The referee elder looked a bit troubled and turned to Su Zimo for his opinion. It's fine, I'll handle it. Su Zimo walked forward slowly and glanced at Jiang Shi. Then his gaze swept over all the core disciples present. He said calmly, I know many of you have a problem with me. You want to see me fail. I hate trouble. One-on-one challenges are boring. Let's just make it simple. All of you, come at me at once. I'll take on everyone. The scene erupted in uproar. Arrogant. Prince Daoyang snorted coldly. Su Zimo smiled, raised his right hand, and sent a palm strike at him. Boom! The space around shattered in layers, and a storm condensed in his palm. Prince Daoyang's face changed drastically. He swung his saber, but was still blasted away with a single palm. In that instant, the other core disciples who were ready to enjoy the show all turned serious. They looked at Su Zimo in disbelief. Unfathomable! Sacred Lord Shao squinted slightly from the top and murmured softly. Don't say I didn't give you a chance. Come at me together. Otherwise, you won't even have one. As Su Zimo spoke, the peak pressure of the Imperial Meridian realm spread from his body. He stepped into the air, looking down at the disciples below. Slowly, he drew the Shadow Tyrant. Thunder and flames erupted. Half the sky fell under his aura. The power of creation surged. Come. Let me see how strong this generation of core disciples really is. Seeing this, the crowd below was stunned. Imperial Meridian Realm's peak, someone said in disbelief. How is that possible? He's so young. That's as strong as the strongest core disciples. This is gonna be intense. The expressions below turned grim. Xiang Qianheng and Undefeated Sword Monarch exchanged a glance. Ganging up isn't honorable, Undefeated Sword Monarch said calmly. But in this case, even teaming up might not be enough, Xiang Qianheng replied, sensing Su Zimo's pressure. He smiled bitterly. I heard he even fused with the hell-suppressing deity physique. You guys go. I'm still his big brother. Xiazai chuckled and stepped aside. Then let's do it together. Xiang Qianheng released the full pressure of his Imperial Meridian realm. He chuckled. Can't let our junior brother make a fool of us. Jiang Shi said nothing. Surrounded by chilling cold, she also flew into the air to join the fight. Chapter 314, A One-Sided Battle. Undefeated Sword Monarch looked at his broken sword and fell silent for a moment. Then, sword intent surged in his hand as he gently touched the shattered blade. With a clear clang, the short sword reformed in his hand. He looked up at the sky, where the clouds and wind swirled, then stepped into the air. Let's go face him too, said Prince Daoyang with a smile to Star Sword Fairy. Next to them, Zhu Ming narrowed his eyes, several high-level trapping formations swirling around him. He let out a low shout and also flew up. At the highest point in the sky, Su Zimo stood in the air, facing off against the core disciples. You let the sacred ground release my master, and I won't hold this against you, Jiang Xie said coldly to Su Zimo. Let it go. Su Zimo smiled and shook his head. Beat me, and I'll give you my position of Holy Sun. How about that? Jiang Xie snorted coldly. Her jade-like hand wrapped in frost. She slashed through the void toward him. Xiang Qianheng didn't hold back either. Domineering aura surrounded him. Dark spirit force surged around his palm as he struck down with overwhelming force. Zhu Ming brought his hands together, and a faint dragon's roar echoed. With a wave of his right hand, the trapped dragon formation surrounded Su Zimo. Undefeated Sword Monarch raised his sword high. A massive sword formed above his head. It sliced through layers of space, crossed the sky, and descended. Prince Daoyang and Star Sword Fairy also wielded their weapons. Blades clashed. One sun and one star slowly rose and flew toward Su Zimo. His physical body had been tempered by the power of creation. With the return of the Tree of Life and the perfected plant system of the True Fate world enhancing him, Su Zimo wanted to test his current strength. Zimo watched all these attacks fly toward him. Spirit force raged in the sky. All kinds of energy intertwined. Waves of pressure like crashing seas rolled over him, creating ripples. The sky boomed and thundered. The attacks all struck Su Zimo in the blink of an eye. He didn't move. He stood still and let them hit him head-on. The power of creation surged around his body. More importantly, the Tree of Life activated. It instantly began healing any wounds he suffered. With the Tree of Life, Su Zimo wasn't afraid of injury. Unless someone could obliterate him in a single instant, damage meant nothing. "Is this guy crazy?" some disciples below said in disbelief. "He's going to take all those attacks with his body?" Not just the disciples. Even Sacred Lord Shao and the 6 elders looked stunned. "Invincible within the same realm?" Sacred Lord Shao murmured. Below, Meng Qinshua's face turned pale. She instantly saw how wide the gap was. Boom! A huge explosion echoed in the sky. All those powerful attacks instantly destroyed the space where Su Zimo stood. Waves of energy surged like a heat wave, rumbling continuously. The space shattered completely, and a massive black hole appeared. Chaotic space currents swirled above it. After a long time, the energy waves dispersed and the space began to calm. Everyone craned their necks to look at where Su Zimo had stood. They wanted to know the result. "No way!" Xiang Qianheng shook his head in disbelief. Beside him, undefeated Sword Monarch frowned and stepped back, saying quietly, "This is trouble." In midair, Su Zimo stood unharmed. His purple robe flapped in the fierce wind. His long hair drifted behind him. A faint green glow shimmered briefly across his skin. "What a nice body massage." Su Zimo cracked his neck and chuckled. "He's too strong." A disciple below muttered, shocked. "If that's all you've got," Su Zimo said as he raised Shadow Tyrant, "then let's end it." A layer of pitch-black spirit force covered Shadow Tyrant. Aura of annihilation spread from Su Zimo's body. In just a moment, it blanketed half the sky. Dark energy surged upward, forming a terrifying face in the clouds. The monstrous face roared down at everyone. As the black aura intensified, the pressure grew unbearable. 12th form, Void Oblivion. Su Zimo spoke in a cold, killing tone. In an instant, the space around him exploded. Aura of extinction spread from the sky, as if to erase everything to return all to nothingness. Seeing this, the core disciples turned pale. "What kind of technique is this? I've never heard of it," Xiang Qianheng said, frowning. "We can't fight separately anymore. Let's focus all our attacks in one direction and try to break through," Undefeated Sword Monarch said calmly. Everyone nodded. "No need for all that. Weaklings should understand their place." Su Zimo sneered at them. He slowly raised Shadow Tyrant. A formless aura spread from his body. With a thunderous dragon roar, he unleashed the 7th War God transformation, Azure Dragon. A green-yellow giant dragon spiraled in the sky, descending with Su Zimo's curved blade. It looked fused to the blade itself. The dragon's roar shook the void, unleashing endless destructive energy. While the Void Oblivion surrounded them from all sides, the Azure Dragon crashed down from above. The 12th form, Void Oblivion, was inspired by Su Zimo's past life studying the Annihilation Codex of Grand Emperor Sandao. Now, the group was in deadly danger. "Su Zimo, are you trying to kill them?" An elder below shouted angrily. "Let's go!" Xiang Qianheng and the others roared, unleashing their strongest moves. Ice Seals 10,000 miles. Sword Intense Soars. Star Sun Spiral.
Even Locking Formation.
Two extreme forces collided, but Su Zimo's power was overwhelming. Their combined force was shattered instantly on impact. The Void Oblivion closed in, and the Azure Dragon descended with ancient draconic might. The group turned pale, their bodies completely suppressed, unable to move. Just as they were about to be erased by the devastating force, suddenly, a figure appeared before them. A vast god power erupted skyward. Chapter 3:15 Trouble begins. "It's Sacred Lord Shao," someone below shouted. Everyone looked up to see Sacred Lord Shao standing in front of the group, though no one knew when he had arrived. He waved his right hand, and boundless spirit force gathered, forming a blue shield that enveloped everyone. Then Su Zimo's attack landed with a loud boom in the sky. The entire world seemed to sink into the void. Su Zimo clasped his hands and watched the scene in the void with interest. As the attack ended, the shield around Sacred Lord Shao began to crack and shatter. The others escaped without serious harm, all floating in midair, gasping for breath. "All right, this match is over," Sacred Lord Shao said calmly. He looked down at his right hand. It was slightly numb. Though he wasn't injured, for an attack from someone in the Imperial Meridian Realm to make a God Meridian Realm cultivator feel that, especially when Su Zimo hadn't even activated his first battle physique, was astonishing. "Hopefully this era can produce a Grand Emperor," he muttered softly. "That's not enough." Su Zimo shook his head. "The Sacred Lord interfering. That breaks the rules, doesn't it?" "The rules don't allow you to kill them during a match either," Sacred Lord Shao said flatly. "People make mistakes sometimes," Su Zimo smiled. "But since they offended me, they should pay a price." "What do you mean?" Sacred Lord Shao asked with a frown. "Simple. My request isn't excessive. Each of them takes one punch from me," Su Zimo said. "That's the price. The match is already over. There's no need for more fighting," the Sacred Lord replied. "You've won. This isn't about winning or losing," Su Zimo said, shaking his head. "I'm upholding the dignity of the Holy Sun. They should revere me, not dismiss me." Sacred Lord Shao went silent. He had no argument against the dignity of the Holy Sun. Before the Holy Sun matured, these core disciples never cared. No one had enforced this before, but now that it was being brought up, he couldn't refuse outright. He glanced down at Su Qingshan, hoping for help. But Su Qingshan kept his head down, ignoring the glance. This was about his son's authority in the sacred ground. Of course he would support him. "All right, it's just a lesson." Sacred Lord Shao finally sighed and stepped back. Su Zimo smiled and began walking toward the core disciples. None of them flinched, raising their heads to meet his gaze. "You should be grateful this is within the true martial sacred ground," Su Zimo said with a smile. He kicked Xiang Qianheng off with one foot. The others received the same treatment, like kicking balls. He booted each one of them away. Only Jiang Shir remained. He grabbed her by the throat and lifted her up. "I've actually been merciful. Originally, I should have sent you and your master to hell." With that, he tossed her away. Her body slammed into the stage below, shattering half of it. She lay in a pool of blood, her white dress stained red. Su Zimo raised his head, scanning every disciple present in the sacred ground. None of them dared to meet his eyes. "Glory to the Holy Sun!" someone suddenly shouted, and the entire domain erupted into cheers. Su Zimo's name had now spread throughout the true martial sacred ground. Even among the core disciples, his name brought fear. He had nearly defeated all of them single-handedly. If Sacred Lord Shao hadn't intervened, they might not have left alive. After the martial tournament ended, many were left deep in thought. It was supposed to be a chance to make a name for themselves. But in the end, the only name anyone remembered was Su Zimo's. It was as if everything before had been a prelude to that final battle. And that final battle was completely one-sided. There wasn't even a chance to fight back. Is the Holy Sun of this generation really this strong? Many asked themselves. After the event, Su Zimo returned to South Goose Mountain. He planned to leave the true martial sacred ground the next day, setting out alone. Before leaving, he picked a few life leaves from the Tree of Life. He gave them to his parents, Lin Ruhu, Little Gue, and Yao Shengnan. Su Qingshan accepted them with a smile and didn't ask questions. Everyone has their own secrets. He was proud of his son's accomplishments. Only his mother nagged him, reminding him about staying safe and about the family event in the northern continent next year. Early the next morning, as the sky was still gray, Su Zimo rode the dark sky tiger and left the true martial sacred ground. Light rain fell outside, and he quite enjoyed the mood of it. As he traveled, the sky brightened, but the overcast weather still felt oppressive. The dark sky tiger trotted along the muddy road. As they passed a small pavilion, Su Zimo heard a melodious sound of a zither. He looked up and saw an old man and a young woman sitting in the pavilion. The woman was playing the zither, the notes as gentle as flowing water, cheerful in tone. The old man held a long staff, carefully cleaning it. When he saw Su Zimo approach, the old man looked up and smiled, but said nothing. "Interesting," Su Zimo said with an amused smile. The dark sky tiger kept walking forward. Suddenly, sharp wind noises came from the side. Several wind blades flew toward him. The dark sky tiger roared, swatting them aside with its claws. It yelped in pain. Though the blades were dispersed, they still left wounds on its paws. Su Zimo turned to the pavilion and said calmly, "Were you waiting for me? You sure forget things easily, don't you?" The old man laughed. "Have you forgotten what you did in the Holy Flower region?" "Holy Flower region?" Su Zimo frowned, waiting for more. "I'm from the Fan Clan," the old man said. "It's about the sacred Buddha, right?" Su Zimo immediately understood. Although the sacred Buddha was a holy son of the Buddha realm, before joining the Buddha realm, he was a disciple of the Fan Clan. The Fan Clan wasn't that powerful, but due to their ties with the Buddha realm they had grown strong in recent years, becoming a top-tier force. "You've come for revenge?" Su Zimo asked with a smile. "I just didn't expect you to be the current holy son of the true martial sacred ground," the old man said calmly, squinting slightly. Chapter 316 Ruins of Divinity. "Whether I'm in the true martial sacred ground or not, I have no reason to fear you," Su Zimo said with a shake of his head and a smile. "Your name has already spread across the entire Holy Flower region," the old man replied with a smile. "I heard you destroyed the heaven-severing sacred ground." "Then tell me," Su Zimo said, jumping down from the dark sky tiger and walking step by step toward the pavilion. "Do you think your Buddha realm or the Fan Clan is stronger than the heaven-severing sacred ground?" "Hard to say." The old man paused, then shook his head. Outside, light rain fell steadily. Willow trees lined both sides of the road, with crystal-clear raindrops slowly dripping from the green leaves. As Su Zimo stepped into the pavilion, the sound of the woman's zither came to a halt. She raised her head and stared intently at Su Zimo. "Maybe it's hard to say for you," Su Zimo said with a faint smile. "But for me, it makes no difference. You're all just ants." "You speak boldly, young man," the old man replied calmly, not angry. "But I believe you have the strength to back it up." "All right, cut to the point." Su Zimo waved his hand. "What do you want from me?" "You killed the sacred Buddha of our Fan Clan. The Buddha realm is furious," the old man said. "And I should care why?" Su Zimo asked casually. "Our Fan Clan had a chance to enter the ruins of divinity," the old man said word by word. "That spot was meant for the sacred Buddha. But now he's dead. So now you want to give that opportunity to me?" Su Zimo asked with interest. "Yes, we want you to take his place." The old man nodded seriously. "The ruins of divinity gather heroes from all over. Even without the dangers inside, the geniuses attending are already threats. The sacred Buddha could handle that. But now that he's dead, sending someone else from our family would be throwing them to their deaths. A waste. So you came to me," Su Zimo said. "You don't get something for nothing in this world. We only have one condition." The old man took a deep breath and glanced at the woman beside him. Finally, he said, "You must marry the daughter of the current head of the Fan Clan. A buy one, get one deal, huh?" Su Zimo chuckled and looked over at the woman. She was indeed beautiful, tall, with elegant eyebrows and a delicate face. Her eyes sparkled with a celestial glow. Her skin was pale, and she wore a light blue robe that made her seem graceful and gentle. "What do you say, young master?" the old man asked. "You're trying to bind me to your family with a woman," Su Zimo said, smiling. Not a very smart move. We have no other choice. The old man sighed and shook his head. When the sacred Buddha was alive, we had the Buddha realm's support. They were grooming him to fight for the heaven's will of this era. Now that he's gone, our ties to the Buddha realm have weakened. Does the Buddha realm know about your spot in the ruins of divinity? Su Zimo asked. If they did, I wouldn't be the one deciding what to do with it. The old man shook his head. So, what do you think? I don't like mixing love with profit, Su Zimo replied, and I won't compromise for anyone or anything. Hearing that, the woman tugged at the old man's sleeve and said stubbornly, Great elder, let's go. If he doesn't want to, why keep pestering him? Step back. The old man scolded with a frown. The woman snorted and backed away. Think carefully, young master. The old man tried once more. The ruins of divinity may hold the truth about the gods of the legendary era. Some have obtained incredible fortunes inside. Divine weapons, ancient god beasts. It's a place that can change one's destiny. Many fight tooth and nail just to get in. Su Zimo turned his back, staring at the gray sky in the distance. The ruins of divinity are located in the Middle Continent. All the imperial lineages there jointly control the ruins. Sects from other continents, including the true martial sacred ground, can't interfere. Through the ages, countless beings have died in those ruins. But just as many have found amazing opportunities. Some obtained weapons of ancient gods. Others found the eggs of divine beasts raised by gods. The most famous case is the Sky Vault Emperor. As a youth, he had poor talent and was expelled from his clan. After many hardships, he entered the ruins of divinity and came out completely transformed. From that point, he rose all the way to become a grand emperor. Su Zimo thought for a moment, then finally said, All right, I'll take your fan clan's spot. Glad to work together. The old man smiled, not surprised. Those who truly understood the ruins of divinity knew how dangerous they were, but still couldn't resist the temptation. No, you're wrong. This isn't cooperation, Su Zimo said, shaking his head as he walked toward the old man. He grabbed the old man by the collar and slowly lifted him off the ground. Divine power flickered around the old man, but he didn't resist. You're not qualified to work with me, Su Zimo said. You're only worthy of being my subordinates. Maybe, if I'm in a good mood, I'll give you a chance to rise. What do you mean by that? The old man asked calmly. I'll carry the heavens will someday and ascend to the upper realm, Su Zimo replied. I won't care much about the primordial heartlands by then. If your fan clan obeys me, I might give you a chance to rise before I leave. You don't want to stay under the Buddha realm forever, do you? Hearing that, the old man was shaken. Inside, waves of emotion surged. He looked into Su Zimo's eyes, carrying the heaven's will. The dream countless pursued. Yet to Su Zimo, it was nothing. But Su Zimo's eyes were deep and unreadable. Neither joyful nor sad, calm and unmoved. After he finished speaking, Su Zimo threw the old man aside. The old man's body slammed into a willow tree by the muddy road. He wasn't injured, but his green robe was soaked with mud. That's your punishment for attacking my mount, Su Zimo said calmly. You should be glad you didn't try to fight back. The old man remained silent, letting the rain fall on him. He had originally hoped to use the ruins of divinity to form a partnership with Su Zimo. After all, Su Zimo was the holy son of the true martial sacred ground, and had destroyed the heaven-severing sacred ground. Either of those would have made him an ally, not an enemy. But now, he realized he had completely underestimated him. Su Zimo was too domineering, more so than anyone who ruled by submit or die. Chapter 317 Gathering of Imperial Lineages. The earlier attack on the Dark Sky Tiger had been meant as a show of force, to intimidate and gain an upper hand in negotiation. But now, Su Zimo clearly didn't play by the rules. And the old man had no way to argue. To carry the heaven's will, it was a gamble. If the Fan Clan bet right, they could ride that wave straight to the heavens. But if they were wrong, the risk was too great. It might ruin them completely, even wipe out their clan. Looks like you weren't ready for this negotiation. Suzimo smiled as he turned, walked out of the pavilion, climbed onto the dark sky tiger, and slowly headed off. Come find me again once you've figured it out. Wait, I'm coming with you. The girl beside him suddenly called out, looking straight at Suzimo. Suzimo turned his head, watching her with curiosity. I said I'm going with you, the girl repeated firmly. You? The old man looked at her in surprise. My marriage was never mine to decide, she said calmly. I just end up marrying someone for the family's sake anyway. If that's how it is, I might as well choose to believe in him. I haven't agreed yet, the old man sighed. He's backed by the true martial sacred ground, the girl replied. You won't find a better choice. The Buddha realm will eventually find out. That relic slot was earned by an ancestor's life. We can't just give it away to them. The old man stayed silent for a while before finally nodding. You're right. The Buddha realm won't let that spot go. He looked up at Suzimo and said, Young Master Su, I agree to all your terms. I just hope that one day, when you have the power, you'll help the Fan clan. I'll take the relic slot, Suzimo said, pointing to the girl behind him. But her? I never said I'd take her. Whether you agree or not, the girl said, pursing her lips stubbornly. I'll follow you. The old man watched the scene, silently hoping this could work out, that Suzimo might treat the Fan clan kindly for the girl's sake, so he didn't argue with her. He then said a few more words to Suzimo and left alone. The ruins of divinity wouldn't open anytime soon. He needed to head back and deal with the Buddha realm. As the old man disappeared into the distance, the girl beside Suzimo said nothing. Her celestial eyes stayed fixed on him. If you want to follow, then go ahead. I don't mind, Suzimo chuckled. He lay down on the dark sky tiger's back, closed his eyes, and rested lightly. Autumn rain fell. A breeze stirred the willow branches on either side of the road. Drizzles fell on the muddy trail beneath a gray sky. The dark sky tiger walked steadily forward. The girl in her light blue robe silently followed. Rain had soaked her long hair. On the muddy road behind them, two sets of footprints, one large, one small, stood out clearly. The Buddha burial temple was located in the eastern continent. Suzimo still planned to pass through the route by the Grand Myriad Mountains. It was much faster. But as the dark sky tiger passed a valley, it came to a slow stop. Suzimo sat up and looked behind. The girl was still stubbornly following. She had no idea how far she had walked. Her long robe was covered in mud, and her face was full of exhaustion. Suzimo didn't say anything. He looked into the valley and was a bit surprised by what he saw. The valley was full of people, many of them familiar faces. The imperial lineages of the western region had all gathered here, including the Purgatory Sacred Ground, Divine Sun's Sacred Ground, and True Martial Sacred Ground. Leading the True Martial Sacred Ground group was the 7th Grand Elder, Tianjin. But it wasn't just sects from the far west. Even top sects from the eastern continent had shown up. Bloodnether Sacred Ground, the Qi Imperial Clan, the Dan Imperial Clan, the Mo Imperial Clan, the Bailey Imperial Clan, the Supreme Primal Sacred Ground. Along with them were many first and second-tier forces. The whole valley was bustling. Not only the valley floor, but even the mountainsides were packed with people. At the front, of course, were the elite imperial sects. What's going on here? Suzimo looked around and patted the dark sky tiger's head. Let's go have a look. The dark sky tiger leapt down and charged toward the valley. At the entrance, two disciples stepped in to block them. Which sect are you from? One of them asked coldly, looking at Suzimo. Just here to watch the fun, Suzimo replied with a smile. This valley is locked down. Rogues and unaffiliated cultivators aren't allowed in, the disciple replied. What if I insist? Suzimo asked. Friend, look inside before you try forcing your way, the disciple sneered. What's going on? A white-robed young man suddenly approached. Senior Brother Zhua. The two disciples greeted him quickly. This rogue cultivator tried to force his way into the valley. We stopped him. Really? The white-robed man glanced at Suzimo, his gaze pausing briefly on the dark sky tiger beneath him, then lighting up as he saw the girl behind. He turned, frowning slightly, and scolded the two disciples. "Idiots! These two are my friends. Who said they can't enter?" He then turned and smiled at Suzimo. "Brother Wang, it's been a long time." "Indeed, long time no see," Suzimo replied with interest. "Well, can they enter or not?" The white-robed man snapped. "Senior brother Zhua's friends can go in, of course." The two disciples quickly stepped aside. "Please, Brother Wang." The white-robed man gestured politely and walked with Suzimo and the girl into the valley. Watching them leave, one of the guards shook his head. Sigh, another prey targeted by senior brother Zhua. The valley was huge, though not empty. There were scattered trees throughout. "I'm Zhua Yihang. May I ask your names?" The white-robed man asked with a smile. "Suzimo. Fan Tianyi." Suzimo cupped his fists and smiled. "Brother Zhua, thanks for helping us earlier." "No problem," Zhua Yihang smiled. "You don't seem like bad people. Just a small favor. But the situation in the valley is complicated. It's best not to wander around. Why don't you come sit with me for a bit?" "That might not be appropriate," Suzimo said hesitantly. Chapter 318, Not Looking for Trouble. "Brother Su, no need to be so polite." Zhua Yihang laughed and, without giving Suzimo a choice, led him off to the side. "It's rare to meet such a warm-hearted person like Brother Zhua when traveling," Suzimo said with a sigh. Zhua Yihang's status seemed quite high. Many disciples greeted him as they passed by. He had even carved out a cave on one side of the valley as his residence. Clearly, these people had been here for quite a while. Suzimo could tell that the seventh elder from the true martial sacred ground must have come after the grand competition. He was sure of that. Suzimo and the girl followed Zhua Yihang into the cave. The lighting inside was good. The walls on both sides were embedded with luminous pearls. There was a stone table and 4 stone stools. A pot of tea sat on the table. "Brother Su, Miss Fan, please have a seat," Zhua Yihang said with a smile. The 3 sat down, and Zhua Yihang personally poured each of them a cup of tea. "Brother Zhua, why are so many people gathered in this valley? Is something happening?" Suzimo asked curiously. Zhua Yihang looked outside, then lowered his voice and said, "Brother Su, have you heard of Silent Extinction Ridge? One of the 10 forbidden grounds." Fan Tianyi immediately responded. "Of course I've heard of it," Suzimo nodded. Silent Extinction Ridge was where Grand Emperor Sandao carried the heaven's will. He naturally knew about it. He had even encountered Silent Extinction Ridge on the way through the Grand Myriad Mountains. He originally planned to go search for it himself. He didn't expect to run into it this way. Rumor has it that a dying elder from Heaven Ender forcibly performed a heavenly divination. Zhua Yihang smiled, raising his teacup halfway. "Let's drink first." Suzimo smiled as well, finished the tea in one gulp and said, "Come on, Brother Zhua. Don't keep me hanging. Continue." "The elder died under heavenly tribulation after the divination," Zhua Yihang replied. "Before dying, he only left behind 3 words, Blue Stone Valley." "This place?" Suzimo asked. "Exactly. All the major forces of the eastern continent searched for 3 whole months before finding this place," Zhua Yihang said with a smile. "Apparently, Silent Extinction Ridge will appear here soon." Suzimo nodded slightly. Silent Extinction Ridge might be forbidden, but it held countless treasures. Many geniuses died there, leaving behind imperial weapons and artifacts. More importantly, Grand Emperor Sandao was said to have left something behind there. "Brother Su, pardon my boldness, but what's your relationship with Miss Fan?" Zhua Yihang asked casually. Suzimo raised an eyebrow. "She's my maid." Fan Tianyi pouted a bit but didn't argue. Zhua Yihang was stunned, then laughed. "I quite like this maid of yours. To be honest, would you consider parting with her?" "Sure, if you want her. Take her." Suzimo nodded. Zhua Yihang hesitated. He hadn't expected Suzimo to be so generous. "Then, would you consider selling your mount as well?" I'd pay for the tiger. What's with all this buying talk? If you want it, take it. Su Zimo patted his shoulder. There aren't many good people like you these days. Brother Su, you're too generous. Shuo Yihang laughed heartily. Then I won't refuse. I've got my eyes on something too. Would Brother Zhuo be willing to give it up? Su Zimo said with a smile. Name it. Have you ever heard the saying? Su Zimo asked. The good die young, while evil lasts 1,000 years. A good man like you shouldn't break that rule. So I want your life. Will you give it up? You must be joking. Shuo Yihang forced a smile. I'm serious. Hearing that, Shuo Yihang narrowed his eyes. Didn't you feel anything off with your body? The tea was tampered with. Fan Tianyi immediately realized. Too late now, don't you think? Shuo Yihang stood up and drew his sword with a smirk. The tea had meridian sealing powder in it. Brother Su, you've disappointed me. I helped you get in here, and you want to kill me? As the sword came down, Su Zimo shook his head slightly. What a clown. So boring. He pressed down with one hand. The power of the Imperial Meridian realm burst forth, and his massive hand suppressed the sword instantly. You're an Imperial Meridian cultivator. Shuo Yihang's expression changed drastically. He knew full well that meridian sealing powder was useless against anyone above the Paragon Meridian realm. Su Zimo turned to Fan Tianyi and shook his head. Don't eat random things from strangers. Do you not have any common sense? I only drank it because you drank it first, Fan Tianyi muttered. So what should I do with you? Su Zimo took the sword and said calmly. I'm the head disciple of Cloud Emperor sect. You can't kill me, Shuo Yihang shouted. A second-rate sect with a flashy name, Su Zimo chuckled. As soon as he finished speaking, a hidden bell on Shuo Yihang's waist rang out. The moment it sounded, several Imperial Meridian auras surged from outside. Several figures instantly flew into the cave. You can't kill me, Shuo Yihang shouted arrogantly. Sir, if you don't want trouble, stop now. A voice came from the cave entrance. 3 Imperial Meridian experts appeared, led by the sect master of the Cloud Emperor sect, a woman in a green robe. You think your sect can bring me trouble?
Su Zimo Lauget?
Calm down. We can give you anything you want, the green-robed woman said anxiously. I only want him dead. Su Zimo smiled. His sword swung. Shuo Yihang, still laughing, fell silent. His head was severed. You've made a huge mistake. The green-robed woman's face changed drastically. The 3 Imperial Meridian cultivators exchanged looks and charged at Su Zimo. You think you're worthy? Su Zimo's body surged with the power of creation. He clenched his fist and punched. With a loud boom, the entire cave collapsed, and the 3 experts were sent flying. The disturbance instantly caught the attention of those outside. Who is that? Someone stirring up trouble here? Someone asked curiously. Seems like there's a conflict with the Cloud Emperor sect. The 3 Imperial Meridian cultivators were knocked back but quickly regained their footing and floated into the air, staring at Su Zimo with grave expressions. Do you know who you just killed? The green-robed woman said coldly. Does a dead man's identity matter? Su Zimo replied. The woman looked at another Imperial Meridian cultivator and said, Go get the Sacred Lord. We'll hold him off. Chapter 319, Is it your place to discipline him? Hearing the words of the woman in the green robe, the Imperial Meridian cultivator next to her quickly nodded and stepped aside into the air. The 2 remaining Imperial Meridian cultivators looked at Su Zimo, spirit force surging around them as they stared at him intently. They didn't dare to attack first either. After all, from the earlier clash, they could sense the difference in strength. As long as they could stall Su Zimo, that would be enough. Don't worry, I won't run, Su Zimo said with a smile. But before your master arrives, shouldn't I knock you both down? Su Zimo slightly bent his right leg and stomped forward with his left foot. His entire figure shot forward like a streak of light. The power of creation surged around him, and the surrounding space crackled and exploded. An overwhelming aura surged forth, and the two Imperial Meridian cultivators' expressions changed slightly. But they could only grit their teeth and charge forward. With a loud boom, the explosion rang out. The two were sent flying, crashing heavily into the mountainside nearby. Rocks and dirt fell. The two slowly stood up, their arms bloody and mangled, sleeves long torn apart. Seeing this scene, the onlookers were all dumbfounded. Two ancestors of the Cloud Emperor sect, both Imperial Meridian cultivators, had been crushed by a young man. "Who the hell is this guy?" someone muttered. "Don't you know that the Cloud Emperor sect is a subsidiary sect of the Blood Nether Sacred Ground? And he's someone close to the Sacred Lord of the Blood Nether Sacred Ground. Seems like his background isn't simple either." Ignoring the discussions around him, Su Zimo walked step by step toward the two from the Cloud Emperor sect. The green-robed woman took a deep breath and looked at the surrounding crowd. "These days, our various sects have gathered in Blue Stone Valley. We agreed to drive out all rogue cultivators. Now there's a rogue cultivator causing trouble. Are we all just going to ignore this?" Hearing her words, the people around looked at each other. They weren't fools. Rogue cultivator? There was clearly more to this. "I think Sect Master Yun has a point. Now that the facts are out, why not stop fighting and investigate?" Someone on good terms with the Cloud Emperor sect tried to plead. "Young man, how about you stop for now?" someone else said to Su Zimo. "If you're a rogue cultivator, then we'll have to take you in." "You can try," Su Zimo replied, giving the speaker a cold glance. His Imperial Meridian aura surged powerfully. The power of creation wrapped around him, roaring as if to shatter the skies. Feeling the chill in Su Zimo's voice, the man shrank his neck. He looked around and found no one backing him up. He quickly realized, though everyone spoke up, they were just trying to use public pressure. No one actually wanted to act. Besides, this young man could crush Imperial Meridian cultivators. No one here was a match for him. Unless an Imperial lineage stepped in, nothing could be done. Su Zimo arrived in front of the two Imperial Meridian cultivators from the Cloud Emperor sect. He twisted his neck and looked at one of them before throwing a punch. He held nothing back in that punch. The cultivator didn't even have time to scream. His head exploded on the spot, blood spraying everywhere. The green-robed woman beside him stepped back several times. Her back hit the mountain, and only then did she stop. The crowd furrowed their brows. No one expected Su Zimo to be so ruthless. "Do you even know the Blood Nether Sacred Ground?" the woman asked, swallowing hard. "He offended me. So what if he's from the Blood Nether Sacred Ground?" Su Zimo replied calmly. "You're quite arrogant." Just as Su Zimo finished speaking, a voice rang out from nearby. The crowd parted, and a group of people walked through. Leading them was none other than the current Sacred Lord of the Blood Nether Sacred Ground, Bloodsoaked Dragon. Su Zimo turned around, and the two stared at each other from afar. Blood-Soaked Dragon frowned and thought to himself, "Why is it him?" During the previous 6 Holy Lands gathering, when Su Zimo earned the title of Holy Son, it was Blood-Soaked Dragon who had led his lineage's team. Of course, he recognized Su Zimo. Now that this matter involved the true Martial Sacred Ground's Holy Son, he felt a bit uneasy. Though both sects were imperial lineages, as the leader of the Blood Nether Sacred Ground, he knew the true difference between them. But with everyone watching, he couldn't afford to lose face for his sect. "Su Zimo, what do you think you're doing?" Blood-Soaked Dragon asked coldly. Hearing his words, the crowd gasped. Those who had been waiting for drama were stunned. The Blood Nether Sacred Ground's Sacred Lord actually knew this young man. It seemed the youth's background was far from ordinary. "Doesn't the name Su Zimo sound familiar?" someone whispered. "Sounds like I've heard it somewhere," another person said, scratching his head. "Isn't the Holy Son of the true Martial Sacred Ground also named Su Zimo?" someone exclaimed. "Probably just someone with the same name." As those words came out, the crowd instantly buzzed with shock. As the most powerful sect on the Eastern continent in everyone's mind, the true Martial Sacred Ground's Holy Son attracted endless attention. But he was known for being low-key. Aside from winning the 6 Holy Lands gathering, there hadn't been much news about him. Killing a few blind fools, so what? Do you have a problem with that, Sacred Lord? Su Zimo replied. Do you know that the Cloud Emperor sect is a subsidiary sect of our Blood Nether Sacred Ground? Blood-Soaked Dragon asked with a frown. So what? Even if they were your own people, if they offend me, I'll kill them. Let alone a mere subsidiary sect, Su Zimo said calmly. Seeing Blood-Soaked Dragon arrive, the green-robed woman shouted, Sacred Lord, Yihang was killed by him. If you won't repent, then I'll take you down myself and demand an explanation from the true martial sacred ground, Blood-Soaked Dragon said coldly. Power at the peak of the Empyrean Meridian realm surged around him. A flash of killing intent passed through his eyes. Zhuo Yihang, the insignificant man no one cared about, was actually his illegitimate son. Even though he never liked the son, blood was thicker than water. He had placed him in the Cloud Emperor sect, hoping he could live out his days peacefully there. With his instructions, Yihang should have received special treatment in the sect. But Zhuo Yihang was arrogant and domineering, and he even practiced a demonic art that absorbed women's energy. Normally, it wasn't a big deal. Blood-Soaked Dragon could suppress any trouble. It was just unlucky that he ran into Su Zimo today. Just as Blood-Soaked Dragon was about to make his move, a group of people suddenly descended from the sky. The holy son of my true martial sacred ground. Is it your place to discipline him, Sacred Lord? Elder Tianjin arrived with a group of disciples, slowly descending. Chapter 320 Silent Extinction Ridge. Among this group of people besides Elder Tianjin was also his direct disciple Luang. Among the 5 sons of myriad formations, although Luang of the Killing Formation wasn't as famous as Zhu Ming of the Trapping Formation, he was still exceptionally talented. Previously, when they went to the Sacred Spring sect, Su Zimo and Luang traveled together and got along quite well. So it's Elder Tianjin, Blood-Soaked Dragon said coldly. What? Does the Sacred Lord intend to discipline the holy son of my true martial sacred ground? Elder Tianjin said calmly. He killed someone from a sect affiliated with our Blood Nether Sacred Ground. What do you think should be done? Blood-Soaked Dragon asked with a deep breath. He didn't mention that Zhuo Yihang was his illegitimate son. Such a thing was too shameful to speak of. Then so be it. Offending the holy son of my true martial sacred ground. He's lucky we didn't destroy the entire sect, Elder Tianjin replied calmly. At times like this, the sacred ground's dignity and presence could not be undermined. Is Elder Tianjin trying to shield your disciple? This isn't shielding. A second-rate sect like Cloud Emperor sect dares to offend a disciple of my sacred ground. Elder Tianjin squinted slightly. Could it be they were acting under your lineage's orders? You're spouting nonsense. Blood-Soaked Dragon snorted angrily. Without evidence, Elder Tianjin, you'd better watch your words. Master, he was the one who killed Yihang first. We were only trying to capture him, the green-robed woman explained from the side. Noise! Elder Tianjin snorted. He raised his hand to suppress her. The pressure of the Empyrean Meridian realm surged. As the giant hand fell, the green-robed woman screamed in agony. Master, save me! A loud explosion echoed all around. Elder Tianjin slowly withdrew his hand. The green-robed woman had been reduced to ashes. Tianjin, you've gone too far. Blood-Soaked Dragon growled with an ugly expression. This matter ends here, Elder Tianjin said calmly. The matter of Silent Extinction Ridge is important. No mistakes are allowed. The fact I didn't wipe out Cloud Emperor sect is already me showing you face. Do you Blood Nether Sacred Ground really want to start a war with us? Hearing Elder Tianjin's words, Blood-Soaked Dragon took a deep breath and said hatefully, I will remember this day. After that, he turned and left directly. As for starting a war with the true martial sacred ground, that was impossible. The Blood Nether Sacred Ground simply didn't have that kind of strength right now. But if one day their sect produced someone who bore the heaven's will, he would definitely settle the score. Elder Tianjin turned and glanced at Su Zimo. You really can't stay out of trouble no matter where you go. You flatter me, 7th Grand Elder. I was the victim here, Su Zimo shook his head and said, Silent Extinction Ridge is about to open. Will you be entering with us? Elder Tianjin asked. Let's go together. Maybe I'll find some opportunity in there. Su Zimo smiled. Then he and Luang exchanged greetings. Everyone returned to the area where the true martial sacred ground was gathered. They began quietly waiting for the appearance of Silent Extinction Ridge. During that time, Luang asked curiously, Master, this Silent Extinction Ridge is where our ancestor Sandao once bore the heaven's will. Did he leave behind anything? Leave behind what? Elder Tianjin asked calmly. Like clues, or maybe a map? Luang chuckled. Maybe something that can help us get ahead of others and find the opportunities inside. You're thinking too much. Elder Tianjin glanced at the surrounding sects. Then he lowered his voice and said, Our purpose is different from theirs. Some of them are here hoping for a lucky break. Others want to find the Grand Emperor true treasure left behind long ago. And what about us? Luang asked, puzzled. Our ancestors sealed something inside back then, Elder Tianjin replied calmly. We're going in for 2 reasons. 1, to check if the seal is still intact. 2, to strengthen the seal. As for other treasures, they're not part of our mission. Ah, Luang looked stunned. After thinking for a bit, he said, Then, Master, you can check the seal. I'll go treasure hunting with the Holy Sun. How about it? I prefer moving alone. Su Zimo smiled and shook his head. You'd better stay with 7th Elder. This is a forbidden ground. Don't take it lightly. Then what about me? Fan Tianyi asked from the side. Stay outside. If you want to die, you're welcome to come in, Su Zimo replied. After chatting for a while, Su Zimo also saw some familiar faces. For example, Qi Qianxue, the saintess of the Qi Imperial clan, and Mo Songhai, the patriarch of the Mo Imperial clan. He had used their teleportation array previously. Most of the imperial lineages brought along their personal disciples. 3 days later, just at dawn, the morning glow rose from the east, and sunlight bathed the land. The people meditating in the valley were drawn by a rumbling sound. Everyone looked up. In the sky, spatial ripples surged violently. Waves of storms rushed in. Even the sun above seemed to be obscured. The thunder-like rumbling lasted a long time. Finally, a deafening explosion shook the heavens and earth. The space within 100 miles cracked open, and a black landmass floated in. The true identity of this black landmass was a mountain ridge. It blocked out the sunlight entirely. The mountain ridge stretched for hundreds of miles. And that was just what was visible on the outside. Most of it was still hidden in space. Endless annihilation energy spread around the ridge. It's here! Someone looked up and said excitedly. As the Silent Extinction Ridge settled, the annihilation energy around it began to slowly fade. Everyone flew into the air, heading toward the ridge. A transparent barrier surrounded the ridge. This barrier had incredible rebound power. Even immortal path cultivators couldn't break through it. On one side of the barrier was a portal-like entrance. The other factions all stood at the back. Led by the true martial sacred ground, the major imperial lineages entered first. Then the other factions rushed in afterward. Su Zimo did not follow the main group from the true martial sacred ground. When he stepped into Silent Extinction Ridge, he felt the world spinning before his eyes. It was as if he had traveled from one space to another. The sensation didn't last long. After a few minutes, his body stabilized and his vision cleared. The Silent Extinction Ridge was vast. Though many people had entered, it was like a drop in the ocean. Su Zimo looked at his surroundings. He was in a dense forest. Sunlight couldn't penetrate the membrane above, and the place was permanently gloomy. This forest grew only one type of tree, the ghastly tree.